Chapter 703. The meeting lasted for about an hour. The members of the Bai family and the Wulin heroes with different moods were sent away. As Sun Lang said, the most important thing at the moment was to appease the people. Only Sun Lang and Wei Zhongxian were left in the upright morality hall. Sun Lang stretched and said, "Damn it, so troublesome. A group of stupid owls always think that I will steal their dead mouse." Wei Zhongxian smiled and said, "You're a godlike figure. You don't have to worry about the stupid troubles of mortals. If you don't want to care about this, you don't have to do it." Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "It's not that easy. Do you remember what I said? Public opinion is very important. We have to spread what happened to the Bai family and seize the opportunity. Besides, the Bai family is old man Bai's family. It's not good for it to be destroyed by internal and external troubles." Wei Zhongxian was stunned and then smiled. "If it were you in the past, I'm afraid you wouldn't admit the second motive so frankly. At most, you would say it was convenient." Sun Lang smiled and said, "It's okay to be frank occasionally." Wei Zhongxian smiled and said, "I remember you call that kind of behavior arrogant. It's very appropriate, but I think it's better for a man not to be arrogant." Sun Lang turned his head to one side and pouted. I'm not arrogant." Wei Zhongxian's mouth twitched and said helplessly, "Master, don't be like this. I'm very disappointed." The two of them chatted and laughed for a while. Then, Sun Lang tapped on the armrest of the chair and muttered, "Talk is talk. We can't do anything that doesn't benefit us. Since we have the heart to protect the Bai family, we naturally have to maximize the benefits." Wei Zhongxian nodded and said, "Yes, I'll organize the accounts of the Bai family these days and check all kinds of assets." "Master, don't worry. I won't miss anything." Sun Lang said, "The Bai family dominates Sichuan. As the first aristocratic family in Qinzhou, their properties are naturally spread all over the state. The infrastructure and connections are excellent. These can't be wasted. I had nothing to do in Ming province, so I converted a capitalist and got in touch with Li Hua. It's a good opportunity to unify them." With a wave of his hand, a table flew up and landed in front of him. Sun Lang tapped on the table a few times, causing tiny wood shavings to fly in the air. The outline of the map of the northern part of the empire slowly appeared on the table. Ming Prefecture, Song Prefecture, and Qin Prefecture were connected. "I've already taken care of the governor and general of Ming Province. It won't be long before Ming Province becomes mine." Sun Lang chuckled. "Songzhou is Chao Patao's territory. Needless to say, she has been doing well all these years. She has taken the things I taught her to heart." A rare look of praise and approval appeared on Wei Zhongxian's old face when he mentioned Zhao Yunlong. He smiled and said, "It's more than just taking it to heart. This old servant is in awe of General Zhao's achievements." Sun Lang also smiled. Chao Patao's silly smile appeared in his mind, her high ponytail swinging behind her back like something. It was extremely cute. Perhaps it was because he had obtained the gold radiant sacred sword that Sun Lang realized that his sexual life was near. Thus, his imagination leaped uncontrollably. After all, he was a man who had maintained his chastity for so many years. When he thought of Chao Patao, he thought of a loyal dog. When he thought of a loyal dog, he thought of a dog. When he thought of a dog, he thought of a dog. Wow. Until Wei Zhongxian helplessly called out to him, Sun Lang wiped his saliva and said seriously, "I'm sorry, old Wei. I'm thinking of something very pure. As for what it is, you don't have to worry about it. I don't want you to be sad." Wei Zhongxian hesitated for a moment, then sighed and said, "Master, before this old servant lost my chastity, I was also a wanderer in many brothels. You don't have to worry about that little thing in your mind in front of this old servant." Sun Lang flew into a rage. "I'm actually being looked down on by an old eunuch like you?" Wei Zhongxian smiled apologetically, but the smile at the corner of his eyes could not be stopped. Just as he said, eunuchs were physically handicapped and could not have sexual intercourse. Thus, they were very concerned about that kind of thing. It was extremely taboo for others to mention it. Wei Zhongxian was the same, but he could joke about it with Sun Lang. The topic was pulled back. Sun Lang resentfully glared at Wei Zhongxian and said unhappily, Since Ming Province and Song Province are stable, and the Bai family has sent themselves to my door, it would be a waste not to take Qin Province. When it came to business, Wei Zhongxian quickly restrained his smile and said softly, "But I'm afraid the situation is different from Song Province and Ming Province. As far as this old servant knows, the great general of Qin Province, Wang Wan, is a smart person who hides his strength and bides his time." "I know." Sun Lang sneered slightly. "It's good that he's smart. Smart people know when to advance and when to retreat. Although he seems to be neutral on the surface, he won't go against the general trend. Thus, I sent a letter to him and asked him to come over and talk about the old days. If he comes, he has to support the Bai family. If he doesn't come, it will give me an excuse to act up. So, whether he comes or not, he has to come." Wei Zhongxian shook his head and said, "But this doesn't mean that great General Wang will easily rely on you." "He doesn't need to rely on me," Sun Lang said lightly. "He is a smart person and knows that it's difficult to be confused. In Song Province and Ming Province, the highest officials are dealt with, and then from top to bottom, the situation in Qin Province is different. The Bai family is under our control. As the number one family in Qin Province, the Bai family's roots are all over the province. They have a vast mass foundation and infrastructure, so we can infiltrate from the bottom to the top." Wei Zhongxian heard this and bowed. "Master is wise." Sun Lang thought for a moment and said, "I will write a few letters to Ming Province. First, I will ask Chao Patao to transfer 2 troops over. Then, I will ask Ming Province to send some people over. In Qin Province, we will first set up the framework." He pinched his eyebrows and sighed. "There are still too few people who can be used." Wei Zhongxian said calmly, "There are indeed too few people. Master has been away for 2 years. Most of them are still wandering around the Western continent. Time is short, and we can't cultivate a new team. But there's still many old brothers who can be used." Sun Lang said calmly, "Most of them are successful and famous. They have families and businesses. It's too difficult for them to lose their official position and come here to work. We have to go with the flow. We can't go against it." Wei Zhongxian said lightly, "There are many people who are more willing to work under you." Sun Lang spread out his hands and said, "But their specialties are not suitable. What we need now is a talented general who can stand firm in Qin Province and understand and implement my ideas. Such a person must be slick and scheming. His martial arts are not weak, and his mind is alert. I have counted many people who can do this job well. Those who meet the conditions are all officials in the imperial court, and they are in key positions. Even if they are willing to come, I don't want them to move." A strange expression appeared on Wei Zhongxian's face. He chuckled and said, "You must have forgotten to count one person." Sun Lang's expression changed slightly. "Who?" Old Fart Wei replied, "Your cousin, Duke Ning's legitimate son, Jia Sherdao." Sun Lang was stunned. Wei Zhongxian continued, "After the incident at Great Desolate Mountain, you disappeared without a trace. This incident caused a huge uproar in the military. It caused all kinds of trouble, and the impact was very far-reaching. For example, your cousin, after knowing about this incident, became depressed. All the lofty aspirations he had in the past were gone. He rejected the imperial court's reward and left. He returned to his hometown alone to become a monk, and no longer cared about worldly affairs." Sun Lang nodded and said, "I know. They mentioned it to me." Old Wei hesitated for a moment and continued, "Young Master Sherdao and you are cousins, but your relationship is like that of brothers. That year, you and he were as close as brothers and worked closely together. His loyalty and brotherhood to you is not to be doubted. Moreover, he is talented and intelligent. Under your guidance, his methods are out of the ordinary. If there is anyone who is free to take on this responsibility, I think it must be young Master Sherdao." Sun Lang was silent for a moment and said slowly, "Forget it. Let me think about it." Wei Zhongxian frowned and said, "Master." Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "All right, don't mention this again." Old Wei said slowly, "Forgive me for being bold. Although I don't know why Master doesn't want to meet the people in the Jiao residence, but things have already come to this point. How long can Master hide it?" Sun Lang looked at him, and his eyes gradually became sharp. Wei Zhongxin calmly met this gaze and said, "If Duke Ning has the heart, or young Master Sherdao is well informed, I'm afraid he would have already known. Even if Master didn't call him, he might have already left." Sun Lang looked at him and said nothing. Wei Zhongxin bowed and said, "Master, please make early plans. Don't hesitate." Sun Lang said coldly, "There are some things that you don't know the inside story, so don't tell me what to do. There are some things that Master doesn't want me to know, so I don't know anything. Although I don't know the inside story, I do know one thing." Wei Zhongxian maintained his bowing posture and said firmly, "We old brothers have fought our way out of the Tianyuan battlefield. No matter what Master's name is, what your background is, and what you have experienced, you are a marshal, the master that we will follow with our lives. This is true for me, Yu Zhuoran, Zhao Yunlong, and young Master Sherdao. So, no matter what the reason is, you don't have to guard against him. Sometimes, it may be better to have someone who can give you ideas and help you." Sun Lang looked at him, and Wei Zhongxian didn't move. The two of them were silent for a long time. Then, Sun Lang nodded slowly and said, "I'll think about it." After that, he got up and left the upright morality hall, leaving Wei Zhongxian inside. Old Wei slowly straightened up and sighed softly. Sure enough, after Bai Yu Wei, the Jia family will be the next, not in Master's heart. Jia Sherdao, I put in a good word for you at the risk of offending my superior. Don't let me down. Otherwise, let's wait and see. Chapter 704. After going out, Sun Lang looked at the gradually darkening sky and let out a long sigh. In fact, Wei Zhongxian was right. Back in Mingzhou, after he had met Xue Baochai and Lin Daiyu, he had vaguely realized that he would soon have to face everything. The Jia family, the Rongwa family. He had once lived an imposter life. Sun Lang had very complicated feelings about the Jia family. The situation in the Jia family was very different. Wei Zhongxian was right. Their friendship had been forged in the Heavens Origin War. It was the deep friendship that had been built during the 6 years of bloody battles. This kind of friendship would not change because of identity or name. No matter who he was, no matter what his name was, it did not matter. What they trusted was this unique soul. But the Jia family was different. Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai were easy to deal with. These two girls had only met him after he had come to this world. In the end, they were no different from Chao Patao and the others. But the others in the Jia family were different. The people of the Rongwa family had always believed that the person who had shone in the Tianyuan battlefield and made great achievements was a disciple of the Jia family, the only bloodline of the Rongwa family. They were proud and happy because of this. They regarded him as an outstanding descendant who had brought glory to their ancestors. They were proud of him and cared for him as if he was their family. But he was not. If he were an enemy, he would have killed him with a single strike. But the Jia family was not an enemy. Sun Lang did not know how to face them. This was clearly not a problem that could be solved with strength alone, because the situation in the Jia family was different from that of Bai Yu Wei. He and Bai Yu Wei had been like father and son, and they had been comrades who had cooperated well on the battlefield. He was grateful for the care and help that Bai Yu Wei had given him in the past. He also respected this hero who had single-handedly supported the safety of the 3 dynasties of the empire. Even after the incident in the Great Desolate Mountain, he still made a clear distinction between kindness and hatred. He paid his fair share and let Bai Yu Wei die a hero. Therefore, he had a clear conscience. After letting Bai Yu Wei rest in peace, his heart also calmed down a little. However, the Jia residence was different. In these few months, he had experienced many things. He had gotten to know Yin Luo and the others, and had also reunited with many old friends. Ping Yidao's sacrifice, Kong Zhongwu's release, Qin Hui's maniacal laughter before her death, Hu Shouxin's tears, Qi Guanyan's sorrow, and Bai Yu Wei's relief before his death. And why are they all men? Sun Lang's expression was a little strange, and then he smiled and shook his head. He could clearly sense the changes in his body, but he didn't know if these changes were good or bad. His heart was calmer than before and also softer. He felt that his ice-cold heart was gradually warming up, and he knew that he was probably not as cold-hearted as before just like how he was now tangled up in the matter of the Jiao residence. Amidst the confusion and hesitation, there was even some anticipation. After some thought, Sun Lang finally decided to put this matter aside. Even if he had to go to the Jiao residence, now would not be the time. He would stay in the Bai clan until he had made some arrangements, and then return to Mingzhou. He had been away from home for a long time, and the Peanuts must be worried. Moreover, if he wanted to go to the Jiao residence, he would first have to discuss it with Sister Bao and Sister Lin. At this thought, Sun Lang suddenly froze, and then he smiled bitterly. Even though he was deep in thought, he noticed his true thoughts and feelings of alienation. Go to the Jiao residence. Go. After walking aimlessly for a while, Sun Lang headed in the direction of the Shovel Sword Garden. The Bai clan castle was a sprawling and majestic building complex, but after such an unforeseen event, it was no longer as bustling and lively as before. The castle was deserted, and most people were frightened. A small number of people were conveying and listening to Sun Lang's will. Wei Zhongxian was in charge of commanding and dispatching. He wanted to thoroughly carry out Sun Lang's will and establish a new order as quickly as possible. On the other hand, Yu Zhuoran and the other former subordinates of Tian Yuan were earnestly cooperating with Wei Zhongxian's work. Under the arrangements of several clever guides of the Bai clan, the martial artists were coordinating and preparing for the accommodation. They could not leave yet. They had to at least stay and watch the show before leaving. It was worth mentioning that Yang Tiandu was Hero Yang. Although he was as timid as a mouse and was a hero who created hype on the internet, because of his good performance before, even though he was scared to death by Bai Zhenming's brazen betrayal, Hero Yang still held on and did not take the initiative to beg for mercy or testify against Sun Lang. Whether it was because he was too scared to speak or because he believed in Sun Lang's combat ability, the result was that he made the right bet. Therefore, Sun Lang thought highly of him and entrusted him with an important task. As mentioned earlier, Master Yang was an internet celebrity. He knew how to create hype and brag, and he was very good at branding and image packaging. His skills were maxed out. Therefore, his current mission was to use his reputation and influence to spread the truth about the Bai clan fort and Sun Yunqing's glorious image in front of a group of people who did not know the truth. This was only his first task. After that, he would spread the news about the Bai clan castle to the whole world. Hero Yang was very enthusiastic about this. Perhaps it was because Sun Lang's martial arts skills were too terrifying, or maybe it was because the scene of the two swords shining in the sky was too shocking. Hero Yang had obviously gone from one extreme to the other extreme. He was already showing signs of becoming a die-hard fan of Sun Lang. As for his previous plan of leaving the country with all his wealth after this, he had long forgotten about it. As Sun Lang strolled around the castle, he was thinking about whether he should promote Hero Yang and take the opportunity to enter the entertainment industry. He wanted to show these stupid natives of the empire what it meant to entertain themselves to death. What a pity. He was a time traveler who traveled to this backward and barren world. He was supposed to be writing poems, flirting with girls, making glass, and engaging in entertainment. He was supposed to be developing capitalism and modernizing the four modernizations. But in the end, he could not even touch a woman. He was not a man at all. Wait a minute. Women, women, women. Sun Lang suddenly remembered that he had been neglecting something all this time. After sending Bai Yue off and calming down, he began to clean up the mess left by the Bai clan. Maybe it was because of the sadness of killing Bai Yue, or maybe it was because of the busy work, or maybe it was because of the anxiety in his heart. He had actually neglected something. The Golden Holy Sword. It was one of the reasons he came to Qinzhou. In other words, the reason he chose to go west was to find the Golden Holy Sword. The reason was simple. Although he survived the Battle of the Great Barren Mountain 2 years ago, for some reason, the power in his body had undergone an indescribable change, so that he could not touch a woman. As long as he touched a woman, whether it was an 8-year-old girl or an 80-year-old woman, their body would have an indescribable magical reaction. It was very undignified. This caused a lot of trouble in Sun Lang's life. Because of this damn ability, he could no longer help an old granny cross the road. Every time he saw an old granny on the street struggling to cross the street with crutches, his heart would ache. He wanted to help an old granny again. When he was a child, he often did this and always received enthusiastic praise. Every praise would make the red scarf on his chest brighter. But now, this right of his was cruelly taken away. Helping an old granny cross the road was the birthright of every human being. He firmly believed in this. So for more than 2 years, he had been looking for a solution to this problem. The heavens did not disappoint those who worked hard. He finally found a possibility. That was the Golden Holy Sword. The power of the Golden Holy Sword was a twisted change of the power of the Golden Holy Sword. And Aunt Lu and Xia Wei, who had obtained the power of the K2 Demon Sword, were immune to Sun Lang's touch. So Sun Lang boldly speculated that perhaps the power of the 7 planets could offset the curse power that prevented him from helping the old granny. So, to obtain the Golden Holy Sword, the Golden Holy Sword might be able to solve this problem. Sun Lang stretched out his hand and summoned the Golden Holy Sword. An expectant smile appeared on his face. With this sword, with the power of the Golden Holy Sword, he could help the old granny cross the road. In the future, when he saw an old granny alone, he could confidently walk up to her, first give a young pioneer salute, then ask her if she needed help. After receiving a positive answer, he could help her. Yes, before helping her, he had to do a little preparation work. That was to summon the Golden Holy Sword, then transfer a part of the Golden Holy Sword's aura to the old granny. Then he could help her. It was too perfect, this method. A mysterious smile appeared on Sun Lang's face, sparkling and translucent saliva dripping from the corner of his mouth. He let out a mischievous laugh, as if he had already imagined a beautiful future where he could unscrupulously help the old granny. Then he frowned. It seemed very troublesome to transfer the Golden Holy Sword's aura every time and then withdraw it. After all, there might be a lot of old grannies that needed to be helped. Sometimes, he would have to face a situation where he had to help 4 or 5 or even 7 or 8 old grannies at the same time. Transferring the Golden Holy Sword's aura one by one was too troublesome. Secondly, it might not be enough. What if the situation was too chaotic and he did not have time to transfer the Golden Holy Sword's aura? Wouldn't that be terrible? No. He had to think of a solution that could reach the root of the problem. For example, Sun Lang looked at the Golden Holy Sword in his hand. The dazzling sword reflected his eyes. Pure and rich Golden Holy Sword's power flowed in the sword. He was actually not the owner of the Golden Holy Sword, because he had not signed a contract with the Golden Holy Sword to become its owner, nor did he transfer the Golden Holy Sword's aura into his body. The reason he could freely use the Golden Holy Sword was because of the special power in his body. Secondly, this sword was transformed by Bai Yue. So, Sun Lang's heart could not help but beat wildly. If I transfer the Golden Holy Sword's aura into my body and form a new balance, would it be able to actively suppress the great protective power in my body? If that was possible, Sun Lang's eyes suddenly became sharp. Chapter 705. Everyone knew that peerless experts were very decisive when it came to killing. Everyone also knew that commanders on the battlefield were even more decisive when it came to killing. Sun Lang was not only a top expert in this world, but also a famous general in the world. That meant that he was very, very decisive when it came to killing. Moreover, this involved a major life event like helping an old granny cross the road. Therefore, he was extremely decisive when it came to killing. When it came to this pursuit of life, Sun Lang's ability to move was extremely high. This guy immediately found a remote and uninhabited place and set up Sword Chi to guard the surroundings. Then, he impatiently took out his great sword. He let out a hearty laugh and then immersed his mind into the sacred sword, guiding the fierce and murderous power to flow into his body. He was one of the 7 luminary sword saints, but he was guiding the power of holy swords of different attributes into his body. If it was any other sword saint doing this, they would most likely explode and die. But Sun Lang's situation was different. His situation was originally very special. Moreover, this was not the first time he had done this, so he was very familiar with it. It would be better to say that the reason why the power of the Great Treasure Sword became the power of the Great Protection Sword was because of the addition of the second power of the Holy Sword. And now, Sun Lang was looking forward to this third new power to break the distorted and mutated balance and return all the mistakes to their original point. For the sake of the old granny, Sun Lang's expression became serious. The sharp metal sword chi was like a trickle gently flowing into his body. Everything was as he had expected, going very smoothly, just like the previous time. Because this was a gift from Bai Yue, a holy sword that Bai Yue had transformed into, he could freely control it, and the holy sword would not reject or resist him. As expected, when the external metal sword chi entered his body, it did not cause any backlash from his own sword chi. Earth gave birth to metal, and metal gave birth to water. They were originally a part of the 5 elements. The 3 sword chi were actually showing signs of slowly fusing together. Sun Lang was also keenly aware that his body was slowly undergoing some kind of change, some kind of beneficial change. The old balance was being broken, and a new balance was being established. He could feel the power of the earth in his body changing. The 5 elements gave birth to each other, and there was the transformation of earth into gold. This was the meaning of growth and promotion. The earth was virtuous, and the primordial energy transformed into all things. Thus, life was born. Sun Lang's face revealed the joy and admiration of comprehending the great Tao. This was the law of nature. The earth gave birth to life and gave birth to all living things. The earth represented reproduction and vitality. The earth could give birth to gold, and gold was the embodiment of change. Among the 5 elements, gold could be both soft and hard. It represented the nature of a solid body. After a living thing grew, it would inevitably reach a solid state. Gold was used to represent its firmness. Earth can produce gold. Gold! 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 Oh, Jean. Sun Lang's expression became indifferent. He lowered his head slowly. He couldn't lie anymore, because he could no longer ignore the fact that something had happened. Because with the introduction of the gold sword chi, Mr. Sun's lower body had undergone some kind of shocking change. His pants were pushed up high, like a small tent. A very important part was facing the world in the most high-spirited manner, showing the characteristics of the gold element. Gold was the embodiment of change. It could be both soft and hard. It represented the nature of a solid body. The 5 elements gave birth to each other, and the earth turned into gold. This was the law of nature. Since the water element was also distorted like this, then the gold element had also undergone some kind of extraordinary change. It was not ridiculous, but normal. Sun Lang was expressionless. He had cultivated a deep friendship with his second brother over the years. He often taught his second brother how to use rune cards step by step, so he knew his second brother very well. He felt that his second brother had an unprecedented toughness. The Jingu Bang was even stronger than the Jingu Bang, and if nothing unexpected happened, he seemed to be able to use the Jingu Bang forever. Even if he foamed at the mouth countless times, he would still be able to stand firm and not fall, maintaining the character of the most heroic man. This kind of ability could probably beat the little blue pill 100 times over. This kind of ability was probably the power that all normal men yearned for. This kind of ability was probably an ability that some male protagonists in novels would definitely have. So, Sun Lang threw the sacred sword angrily. Are you kidding me? What the F*** CK are you doing? Why are you sacred swords so shameless? I really want to know what will happen after I obtain the fire, wood, and even the sun and moon. I feel that it is also an incredible ability. Fortunately, the one who saved me at that time was not you, Bai Yue. I have to thank you. Otherwise, I would have to travel around the world in the name of Sword Saint Jingu. This was such a sad thing. This kind of ability that could make all the men in the world envious and jealous was of no use to Sun Lang, because the great protective power was still with him. Even if he only used his hands to touch her, he could make a woman's legs tremble. If he really did it, the woman's heart would probably explode from the beep just now. Therefore, this ability was really useless. No wonder Sun Lang flew into a rage. This cruel fact completely shattered his ardent hope of helping the old granny as he wished, making him feel very sad. He stared blankly for a while, then sighed and picked up the holy sword. Then he separated the gold obsidian sword chi and returned the energy. Fortunately, he could still return it. His second brother, who had been impassioned and smiling at the heavens, slowly returned to his standby state. Sun Lang heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it, if the gold element refused to leave, there would be a lot of trouble. He thought for a while and felt that it was a little unstable. He put the holy sword aside, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and quickly outlined some images in his mind. With his powerful imagination, he murmured, Inluo, Inluo, Inluo. After thinking for a while, his second brother expressed his respect and quickly returned to his smiling state. Phew! Fortunately, everything is normal. He rolled his eyes, feeling extremely displeased. In any case, his wild ambition to use the gold element to change the balance of the sword chi in his body and break the curse of the great protective power was completely in vain. It was so sad. All the old grannies in the world should be crying. They should have been supported by a kind-hearted young pioneer. Unfortunately, fate made fools of them. Sun Lang picked up the holy sword again. Although the big plan had failed, his conjecture was not completely confirmed. The method of injecting the gold element into the body once and for all would not work, so he could only use a simpler method. However, that method still needed to be tested. Sun Lang thought of this and shouted at the top of his voice, Little Yu-Yu! Little Yu-Yu! There was the sound of wind outside. Soon, Yu Zhuaran's face appeared at the door. He bowed his head and smiled, holding his sword and saluting. He was graceful and elegant. Marshal, what are your orders? Sun Lang gave him a sinister smile, revealing the face of a tyrant. Go, grab 2 girls for me. Yu Zhuaran's expression did not change. He still looked like a hero, but his words were equivalent to a lackey. Marshal, is 2 enough? How about 4? Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, I'm not asking them to fight for the emperor. Why do I need so many people? Yu Zhuaran smiled and said, What are your requirements? Let me think. Beautiful long legs, big breasts, pitiful looking. Marshal, your taste hasn't changed, right? Of course, Sun Lang said proudly. I'm a man who will be faithful to one woman. Yu Zhuaran smiled. Just as he was about to turn around and snatch the girls, he heard Sun Lang call out from behind, Wait! Jade Swordsman stopped and waited for Sun Lang to add on. Sun Lang thought for a while and said, Add one more thing. Martial arts must have some foundation. At least, the inner strength must not be weak. Otherwise, an ordinary person would have been torn to pieces by the gold obsidian sword chi. Yu Zhuaran was stunned. Hey, do you want to try something new? I understand now. That kind of proud daughter of the heavens whose martial arts aren't weak is usually very favored and thinks highly of herself. Then, she is humiliated and tied up here. Not only is her family unable to protect her, the martial arts that she is so proud of is also useless. She can only be forcefully suppressed. Then, the marshal is really getting more and more playful. It's just that her martial arts are not weak. A troubled look appeared on his face as he said, Marshal, you said that my martial arts are not weak. How weak is it? She must be young and beautiful with big breasts and long legs. She must also be strong in martial arts. I'm afraid it won't be easy to find. Sun Lang thought about it for a moment. That had seemed to be the case. If there really was such a prodigy of the Bai clan, Bai Zhenming would have secretly sent her away as an elite disciple of the Bai clan. The ones left behind were either ugly melons or beautiful vases. Although their appearances were good, they were unable to withstand the sword chi. So, he said, forget it. There's no age limit. You can find someone with good martial arts. She's in her 30s or 40s. Even though Yu Zhuaran was very shrewd, he was still shocked by this explosive statement. He was in disbelief, as if he had seen the image of a spiritual leader collapse. He said in horror, Marshal, are you serious? Why did his taste suddenly change so much? He actually wants the older ones. And it's fine as long as they have good martial arts. No matter how ugly or strong they are, it's fine. Sun Lang did not think there was a problem at first, but when he saw Yuzhuoran's shocked eyes, he realized that this bastard must have misunderstood. He was so angry about the golden holy sword that he had nowhere to vent his anger. He flashed behind Yuzhuoran and kicked him in the butt. He scolded, "What are you thinking? Damn it. Am I the kind of person who would kidnap a girl? Forget it. I'll find her myself. Damn it." After that, he turned and left. His figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. Only Yuzhuoran was left lying on the ground, looking at Sun Lang's back. He had not recovered from his shock just now. Suddenly, he jumped up and ran in the opposite direction. Eunuch Wei, this is bad. Chapter 706. In the end, Sun Lang still did not achieve the achievement of snatching a middle-aged woman. It was not because someone obstructed him, nor was it because the Bai family lacked a middle-aged woman who was not weak in martial arts. The problem lay with Sun Lang himself. The Bai family, as a Sword Saints family, had a strong spirit of martial arts. Even the women in the family also had good martial arts. It's not that there weren't any strong martial arts. It's just that after Sun Lang saw the real person, he shamefully retreated. There was no other reason. The woman of the Bai family, who was called Ninth Lady by the servants of the Bai family, was really big and burly. Her face was full of fat. She was wearing a custom-made, high-end lady's dress, which could not hide the woman's blooming muscles. Sun Lang really did not have the courage to imagine what would happen if the research failed and the Great Protective Force worked on the Ninth Lady. The resentful Sun Lang had no choice but to summon little Ye, instructing him to keep an eye out for any girls with strong martial arts and pretty looks. Yuzhuoran accepted the order with a relieved face. It seemed that the marshal had finally maintained his lofty image in the eyes of his loyal subordinates. Then, Sun Lang had nothing to do. He could only wander around. In extreme boredom, he wanted to find Xie Wei. No matter what, being with a beautiful girl always made people happy. However, Xie Wei was still a little cold to him. It seemed that the previous sentence of, "and I actually don't want to F***CK her," had caused this good-tempered seductress to explode. However, this was understandable. Being directly sent such a card by a virgin was obviously something that no girl could tolerate. Sun Lang could only sigh. Heaven had pity on him. He said that sentence completely from the bottom of his heart. However, this seductress completely did not understand what kind of praise that sentence was. However, Xie Wei was Xie Wei after all. She would not become arrogant overnight. After being pestered by Sun Lang for a few words, the ice on her face melted. In the end, she was still that kind little girl. It was just that after experiencing so many things, she had inevitably matured and was no longer as ignorant and naive as before. However, what made Sun Lang feel slightly relieved was that Bai Yue's decision and sacrifice had shocked the little girl who had fallen into a daze at that time. He had pointed out the path for this little goblin who was at a turning point in her destiny, allowing her to maintain her kind nature and not be blinded by hatred. This was Xie Wei's fortune. At this time, the two of them were sitting together. Not only could they talk about ordinary things, but they could also talk about the battle of the Great Desolate Mountain without any worries. They could even talk about Xie Wei's parents. The little demoness understanding of her parents was limited to their names and vague stories, but Sun Lang knew much more. Sun Lang told her a lot about the horned tiger. Xie Wei listened quietly and recorded everything. She did not doubt that what Sun Lang said was false and that there was no concealment or distortion. She knew that even if Sun Lang had killed her parents in the battle of the Great Desolate Mountain, he would not discredit their deeds, let alone deceive her. This was because she had witnessed Bai Yue's liberation with her own eyes. Although Sun Lang had experienced a lot of sadness and suffering, he still maintained the strength and pride of the Tianyuan Empire's heroes. He disdained to discredit anyone, just as he did not mind calling them the group of idiots who stabbed me in the back. He would not deny the great achievements they had made for the country and the human race. Xie Wei smiled, listened, and remembered. Whether it was her parents or others, as long as it was something Sun Lang said, She was willing to listen and remember. The light in the room brightened the surroundings. Sun Lang reached out and fiddled with the wick of the lamp. He asked casually, "Why are you asking about this? Why are you suddenly interested in this kind of thing that can't be seen in the light?" The little demoness said softly, "It's just that when I think of Mr. Bai, I feel very emotional. I feel that maybe I can do something. Maybe now, the truth will be covered up by conspiracy, but I hope that people in the future will be able to interpret everything that happened in history one day." Sun Lang glanced at her and laughed in his heart. "Damn, it's still hard to say who will write down the history. You're thinking too far ahead. But if you think about it, it's still quite emotional. You see, although the technology tree of this world is very crooked, the development of civilization follows a pattern. The technological development of a race will inevitably make up for the shortcomings of the race, such as the liberation of manpower, the frequency of communication, and the convergence of ideas. Therefore, something similar to the internet will inevitably appear. Therefore, perhaps hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years, as long as the inheritance of history is not cut off, as long as the later generations of humans still remember the history of their race, then in the future, there will most likely be headlines like, "Shocking, the Tianyuan War was actually won by this person on the internet." It's really King emotional. However, if the secret of the Great Barren Mountain was to be deciphered by the internet idiot editors of the later generations, then he would be a failure. The corner of Sun Lang's mouth hooked up into a sneer. Xiaowei had been paying attention to Sun Lang's emotional changes. Horned tigers were originally very sensitive to emotional changes, so she saw that sneer clearly. The little demoness thought for a moment and understood Sun Lang's thoughts. She couldn't help but sigh softly. In the end, she couldn't make Sun Lang let go of his hatred so easily. "But it's still a long time, isn't it?" Xiaowei tidied up her mood and asked softly, "Actually, there's another question that I've always wanted to know. And the more I think about it, the more confused I feel." Sun Lang raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" The little demoness hesitated for a moment and slowly said, "The Horned Tiger clan can read people's hearts. They are auspicious beasts that symbolize justice and justice. Why did my parents obey orders and participate in the battle of the Great Barren Mountain? They should have known that it was a despicable act of betrayal. What convinced them? This was the knot in her heart that troubled her. Even as an outsider, after knowing the truth of the battle of the Great Desolate Mountain, she also felt that Sun Lang's experience was too infuriating. The betrayal of the Empire was too despicable, and it was also because of this that she was unable to righteously declare her revenge to Sun Lang. Because the Horned Tiger's nature was upright, and she was too kind, the legitimacy of this revenge was too untenable. At this time, although she had let go of the knot in her heart and was no longer obsessed with revenge against Sun Lang, this question was still a puzzle that troubled her. She couldn't imagine how her parents, who were also Horned Tigers and could read people's hearts, would be moved by the words of the imperial court and betray and kill a marshal of the empire with outstanding achievements. Sun Lang's eyes moved slightly. The reason was obvious. If the empire wanted to convince them, it was nothing more than righteousness. In this day and age, justice and righteousness were very useful flags. As long as they were waved, no matter how much blood was spilled, no matter how despicable the actions were, they could be crowned with righteousness. And the greatest righteousness of the battle of the Great Barren Mountain was Sun Lang's identity. In front of the righteousness of the empire, the concept of right and wrong of ordinary people had no meaning. No matter how many achievements Sun Lang had made for the human race, his background and past meant that he would become the greatest hidden danger to the safety of the empire after the Sky Demon. It was better to deal with such a dangerous person who could turn against the empire at any time. Thinking of what had happened in the Great Barren Mountain and the beautiful plan of those idiots, Sun Lang's lips curled into a mocking smile. Other than himself, the people who participated in the battle of the Great Barren Mountain were all scheming and had a card up their sleeves. But unexpectedly, all three sides suffered losses. It looked like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Instead, it was the mantis that turned the cicada and the oriole into idiots. No one's plan was successful. This was a great irony. Sun Lang sank into deep thought. The little fairy carefully asked, "Can't you say it?" He suddenly woke up. It was indeed not easy to say. Sun Lang thought for a while. In the end, he did not reveal that he was a visitor from outer space. As for this matter, it was because there was no need to say it. He was not someone who liked to act pitiful. Even if he said it, it would make the little fairy shed a few tears of sympathy. There was no meaning. 2. It was because this matter was too shocking. The little fairy would not benefit from hearing it. Instead, she would fall into guilt. This kind of truth would make her parents' actions seem even more foolish. So, he said lightly, "It's probably another excuse of righteousness of the Empire. I'm not very sure either. After all, the Dog Emperor is very good at using this kind of slogan to fool people." The little fairy's expression was a little strange. She looked at Sun Lang and slowly lowered her head. She said softly, "So it's like this? But saying this now has no meaning. My parents did that kind of thing after all." Sun Lang frowned and said, "You don't have to punish yourself with your parents' mistakes. Bai Yue was able to be free because of your help. I am very grateful. Since you are willing to give up revenge, then there is nothing between us. This is quite good." Xia Wei suddenly laughed. Her voice became softer and softer. Sun Lang is indeed a very gentle person. He was obviously not polite to Mr. Bai Jinming, but he was kind to me. We are both descendants of the enemy, but he is so patient with me. I am very grateful to you. Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, "If you want to thank someone, thank your parents for giving birth to a beautiful girl." Xia Wei heard this, and her face turned red. Although she was shy, she was a little happy. She pursed her lips and said, "When I went down the mountain this time, I saw a lot of people. Among them, some also praised me for being beautiful. Some of them stared at me lecherously. They all have evil thoughts in their hearts. Only Sun Lang is different. Of course, it's because I don't want to do you. However, such stupid words, saying it once was enough." Even people like Sun Lang understood this principle. A man and a woman alone in a room, brightly lit and quiet outside. The bright girl blushed and looked at you with big watery eyes. Such a scene, such a scene. For some reason, Sun Lang wanted to summon the golden luminous sacred sword. That thing seemed, probably, it seemed it was still useful. Chapter 707. Everyone knew that a qualified military commander must have a cautious heart. Only by remaining calm at all times would one be able to gain an advantage on the battlefield. Being cautious would allow one to recognize the current situation and understand the situation clearly. This way, one would not be misled by the enemy and would not be led into a trap by bait. As a famous general of Tianyuan, Sun Lang clearly possessed such qualities. He was cautious, suspicious, and knew himself as well as his enemy. He would not be fooled by the facade in front of him. A single man and a single woman in a room, a lone lamp in the night. What an ambiguous atmosphere, what a familiar scene. The young girl's eyes wandered about, full of flirtatious charm. Her expression was bashful, and her cheeks were flushed red. She looked like she was deeply in love. Something's wrong. Sun Lang. Chan's eyes became sharp again. Abnormal, too abnormal. He had never experienced such a thing in his 2 lifetimes, 20 to 30 years. Is this little vixen interested in me? It was impossible. This was an illusion. They had been fighting for their lives before. Even those with Stockholm Syndrome would not have recovered so quickly. Something was amiss. What was she trying to do? Sun Lang considered many possibilities in his heart. There was no murderous intent, and the words from before did not seem to be fake. This little demoness had indeed let go of her hatred, but there was no need for her to act like this. What motive did she have? What plans did she have? Did she want to do something to me? Wait a minute. Masaka. A blue light flashed through his mind, and Sun Lang raised his head in surprise, just like Detective Conan. There could only be one truth. This little vixen must be harboring a grudge in her heart. At that time, when I revealed my true feelings, I actually didn't want to do you. She must have remembered it in her heart and couldn't let it go. Therefore, she wanted to get back at me. Was that why she purposely created such an ambiguous atmosphere? Was that why she was acting like this? Was she trying to lure me into taking the initiative? Have you already prepared a trap? Humph, humph, humph. Let me guess what you want to do. Are you trying to lure me into making a move on you, then immediately turn hostile and call me a pervert? Seducing me to make a move on you, and then gradually getting into the good mood, suddenly leaving behind a sentence like, "Didn't you not want to do me?" and then giggling and leaving? Are you trying to lure me into making a move on you, to the point that I'll beep in, and then suddenly reveal your true form as a monster, leaving me with an unforgettable psychological trauma? Sun Lang's face was expressionless. His thoughts flashed like lightning, and a storm rose in his heart. Terrifying, too terrifying. He actually came up with such a vicious plan. However, do you think you can beat me like this? Do you think I'm that gullible? Do you think I will be easily attracted and tempted by a little girl like you? How is that possible? What a joke. The reason why humans are not animals is because they can control their desires. Do you think I'm the kind of thirsty man who will pounce on you just because you beckon me with your hand? All right, I admit that the me in the past was indeed like that. For example, as long as Inluo gave me a wink and hooked her finger at me, I would unhesitatingly give my ancestral chromosomes and the chastity that I had guarded for many years to her without hesitation. It couldn't be helped. Under the influence of the great power of health, the current situation was clearly a seller's market. But now it was different. I got the sacred sword. I have a way to offset the great power of health. The era of the working people's masters had arrived. The situation had changed. Now was a buyer's market. It had to be said that after obtaining the golden sacred sword, Sun Lang's state of mind had undergone an earth-shaking change. The most obvious change was that he had become calm. He wasn't anxious at all, and even produced a mysterious calmness. Even when facing a beautiful girl like Xia Wei, he didn't feel any fluctuations in his heart. He suddenly stretched out his hand and touched the little fairy's head. Xia Wei trembled like a frightened deer. Then she heard Sun Lang ask with a chuckle, "Xia Wei, do you know why the way I look at you is different from those perverts?" The little fairy's heartbeat suddenly sped up. Although she was ignorant, she wasn't ignorant. Although the valley where she lived since childhood was isolated from the rest of the world, her teachers would still bring some interesting things from the outside world, such as rouge, face powder, or some interesting books. Why is the way he looks at me different from others? There's no evil desire? Could it be? It's because Xia Wei's mind was in chaos. She didn't know if she was shy or happy, uneasy or excited. She felt that her face was burning, and her beautiful little ears were dyed red. The feelings of a young girl that had been budding before, after experiencing the cruel wind and snow, stubbornly sprouted. She secretly glanced at Sun Lang, and Sun Lang was also looking at her. Then, in a very matter-of-fact tone, Sun Lang said earnestly, "Because I'm a good person." A truly confident man could even give himself a good person card without any hesitation. Sun Lang felt that his state of mind had been greatly sublimated. Xia Wei was stunned. Sun Lang touched her head again and said in a warm tone, "It's getting late. You should rest early. These 2 days must be very tiring. You can sleep well." Then he got up without any reluctance and left with a smile. After closing the door for Xia Wei, Sun Lang walked for dozens of steps. At this time, it was already late. He looked at the stars in the sky and seemed to see the smiles of the girls. Therefore, he was very satisfied and felt that the red scarf on his chest was a bit brighter. "Everyone, for you, I also kept my chastity well today." Then he looked at his right hand and suddenly had an impulse to burst into tears. Damn, the feeling of touching a girl's head was really good. In the room, Xia Wei was still sitting in the same place. It seemed that she hadn't recovered yet. Ji Du slowly floated out, and there was some disbelief in his tone. What's going on? When did this son of a bitch change his personality? He actually, Xia Wei recovered at this time. Hearing this, the little girl's mouth showed a gentle smile. She whispered, "Sun Lang is like this. Although he looks lecherous, he is actually a gentleman. He won't force others to repay his kindness. He is upright and kind, and has no interest in women." Ji Du was startled, and then said in a complicated tone, "Are you serious?" Even that doghead Zhao Yunlong doesn't have the face to boast about Sun Lang like this. The bright red on Xie Wei's face hadn't faded yet. She chuckled softly and said, "Then why didn't Sun Lang do anything just now, but took the initiative to leave?" The sword spirit said with some uncertainty, "It must be that guy having a stroke again." "Is that so?" Xie Wei didn't comment. She patted her chest and smiled. "But this is also good. If he pounced on me regardless, I don't know how to end it." Ji Du said with bad intentions, "Didn't I teach you before? If he dares to mess around with you, you should take advantage of him and suddenly show your true form." "Ha ha 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 ha." "Sister Lu," Xie Wei shouted. She thought of Sun Lang's previous performance and pursed her lips with a smile. "So, your method won't work." "I'll use my own way," the sword spirit said lightly. "Let me tell you in advance, you have a lot of competitors." Xie Wei smiled sweetly, and a confident temperament spontaneously arose. She said leisurely, "Sister Lu, didn't you say that Sun Lang has a very strange physique and can't touch women? So, where do I have any competitors?" After hearing the sentence, the sword spirit hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't mention something. The other her, the thief who stole her life and name, the one who was close to Sun Lang, Lu Shujian. Since she had the cheek to live, it was very likely, humph whatever. It's just her, nothing to worry about. Out of disgust and disgust for the grudge that she didn't want to mention, the sword spirit didn't speak. Therefore, the little minx felt that it was safe. The night was silent. The next day, Sun Lang saw the smiling little minx as soon as he got up. Xie Wei didn't mention anything about what happened last night. She followed Sun Lang as before, but her behavior and actions were much bolder and more intimate than before. After all, although Xie Wei was forced to follow Sun Lang before, in her eyes, Sun Lang was the enemy who killed her brother. He was also the pervert who liked to kidnap beautiful girls into the cellar, strip them naked, and chain them up. Therefore, she always kept a certain distance from Sun Lang. But now it was different. She didn't mind being close to Sun Lang, didn't mind being close to him, and would take the initiative to pick up food for him when they were eating, but that was all. She was a pure little girl. Even if she had seen pictures and storybooks from the outside world, they were all carefully selected by her teachers for all ages. According to the contents recorded in those books, she would express her affection and even profess her love. It was simply like a child playing house. However, what was worse was that Xie Wei's strange behavior was obviously more suspicious in Sun Lang's eyes. "Humph, this little minx still hasn't given up? I won't be seduced by your beauty. Do you think that in today's serious political situation, I mean the harem situation, I will do anything irrational? Unless you make a written pledge, I will never show my true colors under any circumstances. Maybe I will even consider it." Therefore, these two idiots went their own way in different channels. The sword spirit watched coldly from the sidelines. Wei Zhongxin looked at them with a strange expression. However, due to various reasons, neither of them said anything. As time passed, things changed. The result of the incident at Bai Castle was constantly fermenting and slowly affecting the world. After a day and night of spreading the news, almost everyone in the Bai clan knew what had happened during the day. They knew about the death of the clan leader and the old ancestor. They also knew that someone with the surname Sun had inherited the golden luminous sacred sword and climbed over their heads. Therefore, people began to feel restless. Humans were selfish. Everyone was thinking about their own interests. In this delicate atmosphere, the messenger who had been sent to deliver the letter of the day before returned. Qin Province's great General Wang Wuan would visit Bai Castle today. Chapter 708. During the meeting yesterday, Sun Lang announced that he was going to take over the Bai clan. He also proposed 2 strategies to pacify the Bai clan internally and externally. To pacify the Bai clan internally and to make friends with external forces. He said that he could invite Wang Wuan, the general of Qin Province. At that time, all the elders of the Bai clan thought that Sun Lang was bragging. However, they could only hold their noses and pretend to be polite to him for the time being. Go ahead, Even if you want to invite the Jade Emperor, no one will object. But what made everyone's jaws drop was that they really F** King came. The one who was most surprised was the messenger who delivered the letter. Because he was standing a little too close to the front, Sun Lang casually assigned him as the postman. Sun Lang ordered him to go to Qinzhou and deliver a letter to Great General Wang Wuyin, inviting him to Bai Clan Fort for a chat. In Sun Lang's words, "Get that Wang Matsi over here to see me." The poor temporary messenger didn't dare to tell the truth, even if he had eaten a leopard's gall. It was better to say that he didn't want to go at all. What a joke. That was the great general of Qin province, who was in charge of the military power of a province. Usually, he was indifferent to everyone, and he was not willing to give face to the Bai family. Who was this guy who fell from the sky? Why would he come when he asked him to? Of course, he only dared to criticize Sun Lang in his heart. After all, Wang Wuan was a great general, and Sun Lang wasn't someone to be trifled with. After all, Sun Lang wasn't someone to be trifled with either. After all, Wang Wuan was a great general, and Sun Lang wasn't someone to be trifled with either. After all, Sun Lang was the seventh old master of the Bai clan. The poor messenger did not want to be chopped into minced meat, but he did not dare to go to Qin province to deliver the letter. Did he not hear what Sun Lang said? Ask Wang Matsi to come see me. If he dared to say that, it was easy to imagine how reckless the tone of the letter was. What if the general got angry after reading the letter and vented his anger on him? Wouldn't he be done for? Since he didn't want to be chopped into minced meat and didn't dare to deliver the letter, he could only run. He couldn't run away because the old eunuch called Wei Zhongxian came to send him off with a kind face. He smiled and said, "Fellow countrymen, who else do you have in your family?" and other such things. The threat in his words was obvious. If you dare to slack off, I'll kill your entire family. For the sake of his gentle and virtuous wife, for the sake of his clever and clever child, the messenger was still terrified. With hot tears in his eyes, he took a few trustworthy clansmen and sorrowfully embarked on the road to Qinzhou. However, something that shocked him happened. He arrived at Qinzhou that very night and successfully found the great general's residence. He successfully handed the letter over. Just as he was trembling with fear and waiting for the great general's impending fury, the great general invited him over. He was respectfully invited in by the steward of the great general's residence. He saw the great general of Qin province, Wang Wuan. There was no swordsman, nor was there any thunderous anger. The amiable and approachable great general didn't seem to be angry at all. Instead, he seemed somewhat shocked. Then, the great general asked him a few questions. He could answer some of the questions, such as what happened to the Bai clan fort and how the elder ancestor was. However, he couldn't answer some of the questions, such as Sun Lang's matter. He could only talk about that day when he saw the roaring stone demon face in the sky and the two sword lights that reached the sky. He could only say that the man called Sun Lang was holding the elder ancestor's sacred sword in his hand. After that, the great general decided to leave. He didn't know why the great general made such a decision, and he didn't dare to ask. However, the messenger vaguely felt that all of this had something to do with a boy called Sun Lang. In fact, he might even be the main reason. In other words, was it really him who called the great general over? The arrival of the great general did indeed shake up the unstable Bai clan fort. Under such difficult circumstances, strong support from the outside world could easily calm the people down. Moreover, Wang Wuan was not only the great general of Qin province, but also a hero of Tianyuan who had once served the elder ancestor. Many of the smart men began to make plans again. That Sun Lang obviously had bad intentions. It seemed that he wanted to take over the Bai clan's property. Should they secretly ask the great general to help the Bai clan? Sun Lang and the elder ancestor served the imperial court together. Wouldn't he just watch as the elder ancestor's property was taken over by an outsider? This naive fantasy was shattered by Sun Lang's call of Wang Matsi in front of everyone. In front of everyone, in front of the great general, Sun Lang waved at him as if they were neighbors who had grown up together and casually called him by an unrefined nickname. Sun Lang said to the great general, "Wang Matsi, long time no see." The great general only smiled bitterly. There was a hint of shock in his bitter smile. He then replied in a reserved tone, "Indeed, it has been a long time. To be able to see you again is both a pleasant surprise and a pleasant surprise." Logically speaking, the great general of a province was already the pinnacle of martial officials in the world. For such a person with such a high position to be casually called Wang Ermatzi, even if his temper was good, he would still fly into a rage. After the Bai clan heard this, they were both anxious and looked forward to Wang Wuan taking care of this arrogant Sun Lang. But what shocked them was that Wang Wuan was not angry at all. He didn't look like a great general of a province at all. It was as if he had met his natural enemy. All of this caused the hearts of the Bai family members to be greatly shaken, and they were peerlessly shocked. They discovered that they had still underestimated Sun Lang's identity and ability. How could he be the old ancestor's disciple? Even if it was the old ancestor himself, he might not necessarily be able to make the great general be so courteous. Human nature was always to bully the weak and fear the strong. Even if Sun Lang had killed people before, he had only left them with the impression that he was temperamental and would kill without batting an eyelid. Even if they were angry on the surface, they didn't dare to say anything. In their hearts, they were thinking about how to trip Sun Lang up. So when they saw the great general arrive, they wanted to borrow the power of the great general to fight against Sun Lang. But when they found that the great general and Sun Lang seemed to be very familiar with each other and even had some faint respect for each other, they found that Sun Lang was actually a huge monster that they couldn't fight against. When the enemy they expected to be so strong that they couldn't fight back, they would no longer seek to fight back. When this thought arose, they suddenly realized something. We didn't have to be enemies with him in the first place. He didn't want to kill us. And he even said that he would take care of the Bai clan. Then, actually, this wasn't bad. He didn't seem to be boasting. After all, his martial arts were very strong, and he could make the great general fear and respect him. He probably had a lot of power and status. Under extreme circumstances, the mentality of human beings could often change very quickly, and this kind of change often had very deep marks and imprints that couldn't be easily shaken. For example, the elders of the Bai clan looked at Sun Lang's back with complicated expressions. This person, maybe he could really save the Bai clan. Sun Lang and Wang Wuan entered the meeting hall side by side. Everyone else was waiting outside. This was the highest level of discussion. Regardless of whether it was the people of the Bai clan or Wang Wuan's followers, they didn't have the right to listen in. In the hall, Wei Zhongxian came forward and bowed. "Greetings, great General Wang." Wang Wuan looked deeply at Wei Zhongxian. "Wei Zhongxian, when you left the Bureau of Military Affairs that year, did you long wait for this day?" Wei Zhongxian smiled slightly and said lightly, replying to the great general, "The court is full of purple, but the person who shouldn't be missing the most is missing. Staying in that kind of court is really uncomfortable." Hearing this, great General Wang stared at Wei Zhongxian and said slowly, "Wei Zhongxian's body is stained with the smell of blood. It's very fresh and has the smell of night dew. You killed many people last night, right? Is this what you want?" Wei Zhongxian's expression didn't change. He said, "We're both sabers. I have to choose a master that I'm happy with, right?" Wang Wuan wanted to say more, but Sun Lang had already walked past him and sat on the main seat. He gestured to Wang Wuan, "Sit down and talk. You must have many questions in your heart." The great general looked at Sun Lang and said calmly, "We haven't seen each other for 2 years. Marshall is still the same as before. You laugh more freely than anyone else, but your heart is colder than anyone else's. I can't help but feel a chill in my heart." Sun Lang crossed his legs. "Is this why you've always kept a respectful distance from me?" Wang Wuan sighed. A lowly general has no great ambitions. He doesn't have the courage to press forward. He cares too much and cherishes his body. He doesn't dare to get involved in matters that he shouldn't. Sun Lang smiled slightly. "You're complaining that I used a scheme to force you to come here? As the great general of Qin province, something like this happened under your rule. Even the world-renowned gold radiant sword, Saint, lost his life because of it. You still want to be a coward?" The great general slowly said, "Maybe the imperial court wants me to be a coward even more." Sun Lang picked up the teacup by his hand and took a sip. But you still came. Wang Wuan's eyes darkened. Sun Lang said, sit. The great general of Qin province stared at him. After a while, he finally sighed. He walked to the guest seat next to Sun Lang's hand and slowly sat down. Sun Lang took a sip of tea and said indifferently, just now, I borrowed your power to scare those idiots of the Bai clan so that they won't have any other ideas. This is for their own good. After the shock, there will be reverence. Wang Wuan calmly said, this is the marshal's doing. You always like to play with people's hearts. But in addition to using your power to scare people, you'll also make them feel fear, right? Sun Lang nodded. That's right. You said that old Wei has the smell of blood on him. That's it. Last night, he followed my orders and set up ambushes in the Bai clan's secret passageways and small paths down the mountain. Those of the Bai clan who wanted to escape were all caught. I already told them before, don't mess around, don't mess around. They didn't listen to my words, so I had to use blood to make them remember, and then they were all scared out of their wits. Courage is broken by blood. Wisdom is suppressed by the general situation. Without wisdom and courage, people will lose the will to resist and the heart to forge ahead, and then they will submit. Sun Lang concluded, is there a problem? Wang Wuan's tone turned cold. They're all old General Bai's clansmen. Sun Lang indifferently said, that's why you can still see so many living people. Great General Wang's gaze dropped to the ground, avoiding Sun Lang's calm and aggressive gaze. He said softly, this is why I keep a respectful distance from you, Marshal. Sun Lang smiled playfully. But you came in the end. You had to come, because you will also be afraid. You will also be afraid, right? Wang Wuan suddenly raised his head, staring at Sun Lang. Sun Lang smiled. What, did I say something wrong? Chapter 709. There was a limit to loyalty. There were conditions to loyalty. There were choices to loyalty. With a rich history, a long civilization, and a system that constantly repaired and improved itself, Hutu was the most powerful country in the world. Its power system and social system had reached the most perfect state possible in a feudal society. The social classes were orderly and flowed according to the strictest rules. Monarch, minister, father, son. This was etiquette and order. It was the cornerstone of a country and society. Everyone stayed in their positions and played their roles strictly according to the rules of the game. This order and rule were maintained by everyone because everyone benefited from this rule, no matter if it was the emperor or the ministers, the nobles or the commoners. The emperor obtained the power to rule over everyone. The ministers offered their loyalty to the emperor and the country and obtained what they wanted with their power. The nobles enjoyed many privileges and resources. The commoners also had their own ways to change their fate, learning literature or martial arts. The latter was more popular. The empire worshipped martial arts. The commoners who were born poor could change their fate by learning martial arts. If they could stand out in the triennial military exam and become a martial grand scholar, they could even be bestowed with the imperial army by the imperial court. From then on, they would have a meteoric rise. These were the many elements that a stable country had to have: a stable and flexible social class. The hierarchy was strict but not fixed. The upper class had overwhelming power, and the lower class had the opportunity to rise to the upper class. However, the upper class would fall to the mortal world for some reason. The key to all of this was the imperial army. It was because of the imperial army that the rule of the empire was so stable. If a warrior of the same level had an imperial army and an imperial army without an imperial army, the difference in combat power between the two was obvious. The former could easily defeat the latter. When this difference was magnified to an entire army, it would only be greater. When two armies of similar size, morale, and equipment faced off against each other, if one of the armies was equipped with a large number of elite martial artists who wielded imperial weapons, then as long as these imperial martial artists formed a sharp blade unit, they would be able to directly tear apart the enemy's defensive line and allow their own troops to march straight in. There was no need for any superfluous tactics. This was the reason why the Hutu Empire was able to fight against the Sky Demon and had an unparalleled military power. When a large number of elite warriors from the imperial army gathered together, it was the nightmare of all the armies in the world. The warriors of the empire had tempered their bodies and refined their essence into chi. Their combat prowess was already far superior to that of ordinary people. If they had an imperial army, they would be able to obtain mystical powers that surpassed nature. And if the most brilliant and unparalleled warriors were to be equipped with the most powerful imperial army, they could even possess terrifying powers that could topple mountains and overturn seas, tearing apart the heavens and earth. No shield could block such a sharp spear. It was the imperial army that maintained the stability of the empire and the strength of the country. On the other hand, the imperial army was in the hands of the imperial court or the royal family. This ensured that the central government had an overwhelming advantage over the local governments, whether it was righteousness or strength. As long as the imperial army could be continuously produced, the imperial court would have an endless stream of warriors pledging their loyalty. Even if there were any upheavals or changes, as long as the foundation was not lost, the country would be as stable as Mount Tai. As long as the foundation was not lost. Obviously, such an empire was terrifying and even invincible. As the most powerful country in the world, Hutu would naturally be viewed as an enemy by the other countries. However, no matter whether it was Leaf Fire, which was the best in the world in terms of firearms, or Sharp Metal, which was the best in the world in terms of craftsmanship, even though they regarded Hutu as their greatest imaginary enemy, they still couldn't do anything to her after so many years of research and targeting. But Sun Lang had a solution. The strongest fortress could often be broken from the inside. The imperial army was the pillar of the empire, but it was also the country's greatest weakness. Now, his enemy had personally delivered this weakness to him. Sun Lang looked at the silent Wang Wuan and said casually, "You will be afraid, right?" Imperial weapons allowed martial artists to transcend the mortal world, to stand above the world, and to be unrivaled. They were the symbol of status and the source of power. They brought victory, glory, and wealth to their masters. They were the most trusted comrades and the most precious treasures of imperial weapon martial artists. Every cultivator that possessed an imperial armament would view it as something even more precious than their own lives. However, if the warriors knew that the imperial army, which was regarded as a treasure and brought victory, was not a treasure that could be completely trusted, but an evil thing that brought terrible disasters, what would happen? In the invincible sharpness, there might be an evil spirit with bad intentions. It lived with you day and night, grew up with you, imitated you, and understood you. When the time was right, it would devour your soul, take everything from you, and make your soul disappear from the world completely. And your wealth, status, power, wife, and children would be openly seized by this evil spirit. No one would notice it, and no one would know that you had disappeared from the world. What happened then? There was nothing more terrible than that. And there was also nothing more unbearable than that. There were conditions to loyalty, and there was a bottom line to loyalty. Warriors accepted the imperial army and the power and status bestowed by the court. In exchange, they offered their loyalty to protect the stability of the imperial power and the country. This was a fair trade, and it was the rule of the game that everyone agreed on. This rule was the cornerstone of the stability of the empire, and the possession of the imperial army would completely destroy this cornerstone, and the rules of the game that had been maintained for hundreds of years would no longer exist. It would make the most loyal officials question the emperor's motives, and it would make the country that was as stable as a rock because of the imperial army fall into an unstoppable turmoil. The success was because of the imperial army, and the failure was because of the imperial army. Sun Lang looked into Wang Wuan's eyes and repeated, "You are afraid." This kind of thing, even a smart and tactful loyal official like you would feel afraid. Wang Wuan did not say anything. Sun Lang nonchalantly poured a pot of oil on the fire. "Maybe one day, after you sleep, you will never wake up again. But the Supreme General Wang Wuan will still exist in this world, continue to be loyal to the country, continue to be a loyal official, continue to *CK his wife. Wang Wuan suddenly stood up. The Supreme General clenched his fists and stared at Sun Lang. His eyes were violently shaking. Enough. This is only your side of the story. As soon as he finished speaking, the white light of the sword flashed in the hall. The golden sacred sword solidified and was stabbed into the ground by Sun Lang. The sharp sword aura shot out in all directions. Sun Lang held the hilt of the sword and stared at Wang Wuan. Sun Ran said, "You have also fought side by side with Bai Yue, so you should know what the golden sacred sword looks like. The original golden sacred sword has gradually merged with Bai Yue's body because of the Dog Emperor's possession plan, and it no longer exists. And this sacred sword is a new sacred sword that Bai Yue forged with the glory and pride of a warrior before he died. Don't tell me that you can't see the difference between the two." Wang Wuan looked at the new golden sacred sword, and his eyes flashed with shock and sadness. He gritted his teeth and did not say anything. Sun Lang's eyes were incomparably deep. "I also encountered the same thing in the Great Desolate Mountain, but I survived. You should understand now, Wang Ermatzi. This is not an isolated case. It has been planned for a long time, and the target of this conspiracy is not just one or two people." Wang Wuan said slowly, "I am not the owner of the sacred sword." Sun Lang said indifferently, "But your nation's stabilizing sword is also one of the most powerful imperial army in the world. Do you think that with the temper of the Dog Emperor, he will not return the favor? Since you can even devour and control the powerful 7 luminary sword saint, why would you let the people below you go? You, Wang Wan, are the general of Qin province, a military minister of the border. With such great power, even if you are careful and keep a low profile, you're still a natural target for the ruler to guard against. Since they have to guard against you, why keep guarding against you? Wouldn't it be better to turn you into a puppet that they can rest assured of?" Wang Wuan still wanted to speak, but Sun Lang took a step forward and fiercely grabbed the general's lapel. Sun Lang pulled him closer and stared into his eyes with a cold gaze. He said in a cold tone, "Even if that's not the case, even if the target of possession is limited to the 7 luminary sword saint, does that mean you can relax and ignore everything? Do you want to pretend that this never happened? After you came here today, you flared up at me in an unfriendly tone because of those stupid people from the Bai family, because they're Bai Yue's clansmen. How can such a benevolent person turn a blind eye to what happened to Bai Yue? Do you think it is normal for an official of 3 dynasties to end up like this after a lifetime of military service? I, Sun Lang, know my own affairs. It is unexpected that the imperial court will deal with me, but it is reasonable. There is nothing to say. Everyone will rely on their own abilities. But what about Bai Yue?" Sun Lang's tone became more and more intense. "Even if you don't *King feel angry, you should at least feel sad for the death of a loyal official and a filial son, right?" Wang Wuan didn't say anything, but his hands were trembling slightly. He wasn't Sun Lang. He wasn't so rebellious and didn't view imperial power as nothing. He wasn't Zhao Yunlong. He wouldn't ignore everything and only follow Sun Lang. He was actually just an ordinary person. He had been educated since he was a child, and his personality had been cultivated for 40 to 50 years. There were some things that he couldn't easily make decisions about. He stared at Sun Lang and gritted his teeth. "Then what should I do? Just because they heard your side of the story, they joined you and wholeheartedly wanted to rebel against you and destroy this country?" Sun Lang's voice was as cold as ice. "Even if you don't join me, I can still destroy this country. If you don't want to become a puppet, you can only rely on my help. Do you understand?" Wang Wuan just stared at him. Sun Lang looked directly at the other party's murderous eyes and didn't back down. "So, you have to understand the situation clearly. Know who is your friend and who is your enemy. Then, don't hinder me. You have to cooperate with me. You have to learn to turn a blind eye to my people's convenience. Do you understand?" Chapter 710. Finally, Wang Wuan gave in. Perhaps it was because of his indignation toward Bai Yue, or the fear he felt toward Bai Yue, but in the end, he relented. Even though he knew this was all part of Sun Lang's meticulous plan, he was still forced to step into this chaotic whirlpool. The Bai family, who had been waiting anxiously outside for a long time, finally received a result. After the Bai clan fort went through so many natural and man-made disasters, the Bai clan finally received the attention of the government. The great general of the Qin province, Wang Wuan, personally visited the Bai clan fort and asked about the well-being of the Bai clan's people. He provided wise guidance on the reconstruction of the Bai clan fort and gave his evaluation and affirmation of the late General Bai's life. Then, General Wang also expressed his hope and encouragement for the Bai family. He hoped that with the help of General Bai's good comrade and disciple, Sun Lang, they could overcome all difficulties and unite to rebuild the Bai family, revitalize the Gold Radiance Grand Swordmaster's family, and restore the glory of the Qin province's #1 aristocratic family. For this, General Wang promised that the Qin province's government would assist the Bai family's reconstruction work. As a show of concern for the Bai family and the Sword Saints family, the first batch of elite troops would immediately depart to the Bai family to help maintain order. The Qin province's military supply and construction forces would also provide support. At this point, many restless ambitions were completely deterred, because Great General Wang's subtext was that he and Sun Lang were wearing the same pair of pants. They would even send their elite troops to support that bastard. General Wang's intention was clear: don't cause trouble. After all this, the general had lunch and followed Sun Lang around the Shovel Sword Garden in the afternoon. After that, he left. He didn't want to stay here for a second longer. Sun Lang sent Wang Wuan off. Of course, he didn't send him off too far. He only sent him to the Bai family's front gate. The place was bombed into ruins a few days ago, and a path was cleared overnight. According to the current social customs, when you send off a guest, you have to send them off at least 2 or 3 li away. If you want to show sincerity and goodwill, sending them off 5 or 10 li is not too far. But Sun Lang only sent them off to the door. For someone of Wang Wuan's status, this was very rude. But it didn't matter. Wang Wuan was even more rude. He just slightly cupped his hands and left with a straight face without saying anything. He really had nothing to say. Sun Lang watched the general's figure disappear down the mountain. He smiled. He must be very unhappy. Wei Zhongxian stood behind him and said faintly, "General Wang is a sensible person." After the war ended, he submitted a petition to the imperial court, saying that he wanted to retire and return to his hometown. However, his contributions were too great, and he was also in his 50s, so the imperial court did not release him. However, this old servant heard another explanation: Sun Zhongxian. Asked Zhongxian turned Zhongxians. Wei Zhongxian smiled playfully. After the war, it's possible to reward people based on their contributions. There are many heroes in the army, but there are only a few officials with real power in the imperial court. It's inevitable that there will be too many monks and too little porridge. However, the position of Jiuzhou's great general is an important position in the border. Wang Wan, who has a gentle personality, retired, and another person with enough contributions will take his place. Sun Lang revealed a look of understanding. It seems that if Wang Wuan succeeded in resigning at that time, there would be another person who would naturally take over. And the emperor was not willing to let that person take over the military power of Qin province. "Hey, I think I know who it is." Wei Zhongxian said softly. "Yes, it's General Song." At that time, General Zhao had already been appointed as the great general of Song province. The rest of the old brothers had also been rewarded. The imperial court had done enough to save face. How could they let the disloyal Song Xianfeng take over the military power of the border? Sun Lang laughed. "That's true. That guy's head is full of rebellious thoughts. If he had taken over the military power of Qin province, he would have stabbed the sky to the ground. Moreover, Qin province and Song province are connected. Even if the emperor's head had been kicked by a donkey, he wouldn't dare to let 2 generals with obvious contributions from the Jia faction become the great general of the 2 provinces." Wei Zhongxian smiled. The reason why the imperial court didn't want to do so was definitely not just because of this. It also involved other things. However, as a servant, there were some things that he couldn't say casually. Therefore, Old Wei changed the topic. But the imperial court's machinations were all in vain in the end. Not only Song Province, but Ming Province and Qin Province also fell into the master's control. Sun Lang shook his head. It's not that easy. Even Song Province and Ming Province need a lot of time to clean up, not to mention Qin Province. Although Wang Wuan was forced to admit defeat, he still has a grudge against me and has some reservations. He previously kept a respectful distance from me. Compared to you, he's still more than one level behind. Wei Zhongxian said faintly, but he still couldn't beat Master. Sun Lang nodded cheerfully. That's true. Originally, Wang Wuan had many tricks up his sleeve to become the great general of Qin Province. Unfortunately, he ran into me. Many of his tricks in the officialdom are useless. I understand him. He's afraid of me, so he can only put many things on the surface and do things straightforwardly. Wei Zhongxian nodded. After all, Wang Wuan was the great general of a province. He was almost at the peak of all the military officials in the world. How could such a rare character easily admit defeat? However, the person who was playing chess with Wang Wuan was more outstanding than him. Wang Wuan's actions were incomparably firm and straightforward. Naturally, Wang Wuan was controlled. After all, Sun Lang didn't play any tricks with him. Instead, he directly put all the facts and threats on the table and let him weigh the pros and cons and consider the current situation. Wang Wuan was a smart person, so he made the wisest choice. Unfortunately, he's still a coward. Sun Lang said faintly, supporting the Bai family in front of Qin Province and showing his support in Qin Province. At most, he'll send some people to help. This is the limit of what he can do. If you push him further, I'm afraid he'll turn hostile. Wei Zhongxian asked curiously, Master, what else do you want him to do? Sun Lang showed his shining teeth and smiled. Of course, you want him to write a memorial to the imperial court and report the incident of Bai Castle. He wants him to report in detail to the imperial court and His Majesty that gold radiant sword Saint Bai Yue was devoured by the sword soul of the holy sword and became crazy. Wei Zhongxian was stunned. What was the difference between this and asking Wang Wuan to directly take a pile of feces and smear it on His Majesty's face? Sun Lang sighed. What a pity. If he really did that, it would be a big joke. The imperial court would definitely be in a mess. After all, Wang Wuan was the great general of Qin Province, and Bai Castle was in Qin Province. It was a major incident that happened under Wang Wuan's rule. If he, as the great general, personally revealed the truth, it would be credible enough to shake the whole world. When Wei Zhongxian thought of the consequences, he couldn't help but be secretly frightened. He advised in a low voice, but this also means that a full-scale conflict is inevitable. Master, you have to be careful, Sun Lang nodded slowly. I know. Now the initiative is in our hands again. I like to play the game of waiting at ease. The one who should be anxious is the emperor. With the appearance of great General Wang, the hearts of the Bai family quickly calmed down. Most of the discordant voices disappeared. People hid their restless thoughts and began to obey Sun Lang's commands and orders. The manpower and material resources promised by great General Wang arrived on time. With their support, the Bai family began to fully rebuild and deal with the aftermath. The work of cleaning up the ruins and rebuilding the houses was carried out in an orderly manner. At the same time, the inventory and pacification of the Bai family's various properties were also carried out. Logically speaking, after the Bai family suffered such an unforeseen event and lost the support of the Gold Radiance Grand Sword Master, the huge family property had become a fat piece of meat. Both the government and the aristocratic families wanted to take a bite out of it. However, with the protection of the great general's office, the conspirators did not act rashly. Everything was going smoothly. In addition to the cleanup work, the most important matter of the Bai family was put on the agenda. That was the news of Bai Yue's death. After all, Bai Yue was the famous Gold Radiance Grand Sword Master and a Grand Elder of 3 dynasties. Whether it was a conspiracy or not, the news of his death would shake the empire. If such a grand elder of peerless merit were to die, his funeral would be extremely grand. According to his reputation, even a state funeral would not be excessive. The imperial court would be posthumous. Countless condolences and countless influential figures would come. Even his death would become a political event that would cause the situation in the court to change drastically. Besides, Bai Yue's death was not simple. It even involved a lot of far-reaching and terrifying events. Thus, the Bai family did not dare to make a decision. This matter was simply too important. Even the death and funeral of an important official of the empire would affect the entire empire. They could only ask Sun Lang to make the decision. As for Bai Yue, the patriarch of the Bai family had already been hastily buried. Only a few of his closest relatives were present, and there was no funeral or condolences. Out of respect for Bai Yue, Sun Lang had allowed Bai Zhenming to be buried. This was already the greatest benevolence, and there was no need to think about anything else. But Bai Yue's matter was undoubtedly much more troublesome. Originally, this was an excellent opportunity. Sun Lang said, Bai Yue was a grand elder of 3 emperors, and his reputation was great. His death will undoubtedly shake the world, and many people will come to his funeral. There will definitely be many of his former comrades and subordinates. Most of these people know me, and I'll take the opportunity of the funeral to announce to the world that I'm still alive. Then, I'll reveal the truth of Bai Yue's death. This way, I'll definitely achieve the greatest effect. Wei Zhongxian said, Since you've said so, then you don't intend to do so. Sun Lang hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. That's right. Although I'm still hesitant, I've decided to give up on this idea. If I have to give a reason, he said lightly, it's better not to do such things at his funeral. It's enough that he's dead. Wei Zhongxian smiled knowingly. Sun Lang glanced at him. You don't seem to be opposed to it? To be honest, I'm just being emotional. Wei Zhongxian said seriously, you just need to act according to your thoughts. And I believe that if Master doesn't use this method, there will definitely be a better way to replace it. Sun Lang's lips curled into a smile. That's right. I've said before, the initiative is actually in our hands. We'll leave the rest to the emperor. He said happily, let the Bai family write to the imperial court first. Chapter 711. Wei Zhongxian was pleasantly surprised to find out something. His master had demonstrated an extremely vicious ability to stir up trouble in politics, which was on par with his military prowess. In other words, officialdom was like a battlefield. At least, it was similar in some ways. It had been 2 days since the death of Bai Yue. The reconstruction of the Bai family was still underway, but the rumors about the Bai family fort had already begun to spread. After the reconstruction work was completed, the Bai family's businesses across the province began their first task, which was to announce the truth of the Bai family fort incident and the cause of the elder ancestor's death. At that time, the news of the Huaichuan murder case had already spread like wildfire. The Tensei province had worked too hard to promote the matter, so the rumors spread like wildfire. Now, it had the opposite effect. The managers and workers of the Bai family's businesses were almost driven mad by the strange looks that people gave them. As members of the Bai family, they desperately wanted to defend the reputation of the Bai family and their elder ancestor. Moreover, the Bai family fort had offered them compensation and compensation. Out of respect for their elder ancestor, they worked even harder to spread the truth. Of course, what they said was the version that had been edited by Sun Lang. It turned out that although old General Bai had won the battle at the Dahuang Mountain, he had suffered internal injuries. Therefore, he could only rest at home for the past 2 years. To make matters worse, a terrifying sky demon had used a secret technique to shatter his body and turned it into a remnant soul. It hid in the old general's divine sword, waiting for an opportunity to devour his soul. After all, old General Bai had suffered internal injuries and was carelessly attacked by the sky demon. However, a hero of the Tian Yuan Empire was still a hero of the Tian Yuan Empire. He had been fighting against the sky demon for the past 2 years, but the sky demon still found his weakness and took control of his body. After all, old General Bai had fought for the country for decades and was left with countless internal injuries. On top of that, he had worked hard for the country all his life and was no longer as energetic as before. Therefore, he died at the hands of the sky demon. Therefore, Old Bai was possessed by the sky demon. The sky demon went to Huaichuan to steal the divine sword, but its demonic nature did not change, and it continued to slaughter. Therefore, many heroes gathered at the Bai castle to seek justice for the dead martial artists. This was the cause of the incident 2 days ago. At that time, Old Bai Ling's body had already been controlled by the sky demon. That extraterrestrial sky demon was incomparably ferocious. He was thinking of a vicious plan to kill everyone on the mountain to satisfy his evil goals. In any case, sky demons were all vicious. They didn't need a reason to do bad things. This was already widely acknowledged by the masses. At this critical moment, there was naturally a hero who stepped forward to save everything. It turned out that at the time of the Huaichuan massacre, a hero had appeared out of nowhere. He defeated the berserk sky demon and saved a large number of martial artists who were trembling under the ferocious might of the sky demon. That hero was also a famous general of the Tian Yuan Empire. After winning the war, he went into seclusion and traveled the world. At that time, he happened to be in Huaichuan and found Old Bai Ling's former comrade. That hero didn't believe that Old Bai Ling would do such a thing, but he saw everything with his own eyes and was very shocked. Therefore, he followed the heroes to Qinzhou's Weichuan to investigate the matter thoroughly. After all, no one knew that the famous Old Bai Ling had been possessed by the vicious extraterrestrial sky demon. In the Bai castle, the sky demon pretended to negotiate with the heroes, but its true colors were seen through by that hero. Therefore, the sky demon went berserk and revealed its ferocious true colors, wanting to kill everyone on the mountain. At this critical moment, when everyone was trembling, the hero fearlessly confronted the heavenly demon. He went through a difficult battle, and with the trust he had for his fellow soldiers and the sympathy between heroes, he finally awakened the soul of Old Bai Ling, who had been sleeping in his body. He awakened Old Bai Ling's glory, the pride of a senior official who had served 3 dynasties, the pride of a hero of the Tian Yuan Empire, and the unyielding spirit of Old Bai Ling. Old Bai Ling's powerful will was awakened, and he regained control of his body. Meanwhile, the sky demon, whose plan had failed, went berserk and attacked fiercely, wanting to destroy the entire Bai castle. At that time, the sky fell and the earth cracked, the mountains collapsed, and everyone's lives were hanging by a thread. Then 2 swords flashed in the sky. The 2 former comrades in arms once again joined forces and killed the remnant of the sky demon, saving the lives of the people of the Bai castle. However, Old Bai Ling was already a lamp without oil. He admitted that he had killed too many people in Huaichuan and that he had to take responsibility. Therefore, he paid with his life and died with a smile on his face. Thus, the curtain fell on a famous general. That was how it all happened. Sun Lang wrote a lot of stories. He even referred to the various migrant worker cartoons he had read in his previous life and added many lines and scenes. He also added a lot of artistic embellishments. This version contained many elements such as the sky demon, conspiracy, fantasy, a famous general past his prime, the unyielding spirit of a hero, the responsibility of a man, and so on. The story had many twists and turns, and the suspense was full of ups and downs. If a storyteller in a restaurant told the story, it would be enough to shock the audience. Some people even burst into tears. After all, the steward and servants of the Bai family who had received the story also burst into tears after they finished reading it. Since ancient times, beauties were like famous generals who were not allowed to grow old together. Bai Yue's achievements had surpassed 3 generations, and his name had shaken the world. Everyone in Qinzhou felt honored and sincerely respected him. Even when they heard rumors that he had killed people indiscriminately, they were still skeptical. Now that they heard this blood-boiling, tragic story and learned that Old Bai Ling had died a hero's death, they were moved and believed in the story. With such a touching story, the people would spread it spontaneously. Very, very soon, this rumor spread rapidly throughout the entire Qin prefecture. Just like that, public opinion began to spread. The aristocratic families in Qinzhou were shocked to discover that even without the protection of the great general's residence, they did not dare to covet the Bai family's properties. Because of this truth, the businesses of the Bai family's properties actually improved by 30%. There were even people who burned incense and prayed for Bai Yue. If they came to add insult to injury at this time, they would probably be drowned by the saliva of the masses. And the officials of Qinzhou discovered something even more frightening. Overnight, the most popular topic on the streets of Qinzhou was the story of old Bai Ling's grandfather. And with this as the basis, a terrifying rumor spread through the streets and alleys. It was said that the soul that had taken over old Bai Ling's grandfather's body was not the remnant soul of some foreign sky demon. Instead, it was the sword spirit of the gold, glorious sacred sword. The brilliance of this rumor was that it was based on a broader truth. Curiosity was the human mentality, gossip was the human instinct, and the so-called truth attracted people to spread and discuss. When the neighbors were still talking about the truth of old Bai Ling's grandfather being taken over by the sky demon, if you laughed and mysteriously said, "Actually, the soul that had taken over old Bai Ling's grandfather's body was not the sky demon," wouldn't it show that you were different, wise, and rational? Sun Lang understood this kind of mentality all too well. After all, he grew up in a world full of lies. The popularity and prosperity of the internet had created too much garbage and information that was difficult to distinguish between the truth and the lies. It had also created too many unfathomable idiots who thought they had the truth in their hands. When the officials of Qinzhou realized that something was wrong, the dark rumor of the soul of the holy sword had taken over old Bai Ling's grandfather's body had already spread like wildfire and spread at a terrifying speed. At the same time, the group of martial artists who had gathered at Bai Castle also went down the mountain in batches. The truth they had received was also updated and corrected by Sun Lang. This made the dozens of martial arts leaders sigh in relief. After all, directly spreading the imperial army's theory of possession was simply shaking the foundation of the country. If the situation was serious, it wouldn't be too much to punish them for treason. If the soul that had taken over old Bai Ling's grandfather's body was a remnant of the sky demon, then it would make sense. This group of martial artists from all over the world would bring what had happened here back to their hometowns and let more and more people know the truth of what had happened at Bai Castle. In this day and age, it was more convenient to spread news in the martial arts world. After all, a group of people who didn't belong in society would travel all over the world and brag all day long, and the speed of news would increase exponentially. As for the families and sects of the victims in Huaichuan, they also received a painful apology and generous compensation from the Bai family. Anyway, Sun Lang didn't need to apologize personally, and he didn't feel bad about the money spent. After all, so many things had happened, and with this story to explain and shift the blame, everyone was indeed saved at that time. Moreover, Bai Yue was already dead, so this matter had reached an understanding. Jianghu was full of fighting and killing all day long, and death was not rare. This was good. At least, Bai Yue would be happy to have one less thing to worry about. After the Huaichuan incident was resolved, the martial artists returned home satisfied with the compensation from the Bai family. Some people wanted to stay to help and attend Bai Yue's funeral, but they were kindly persuaded to leave. After all, with old Bai Ling's status, the funeral would take a long time to prepare, and they also had to wait for the imperial court's approval. They couldn't be careless. After these people returned home, they could at least tell the story of what had happened here with a fair attitude. Even in the darkness, there were still shocking truths that spread. Coupled with Sun Lang's secret arrangements and intentional adding fuel to the fire, not only would Bai Yue's death shock the world, but the rumor that the sword spirit of the Holy Sword had taken over the gold radiant Grand Swordmaster's body would also cause great waves in the empire. But in the end, rumors were just rumors. The Bai family had also submitted a memorial to the imperial court, simply stating that Bai Yue had died. Or rather, it was overly simple, not even mentioning the cause of death. As long as the Bai family did not express its stance, the matter could not be concluded, and the rumor that the sword spirit had taken over the body of the sword master was also unreliable. But rumors were still rumors. Not long after the Bai family's memorial was submitted, the loyal great general of Song province, Zhao Yunlong, also submitted a memorial, stating that rumors had been spreading all over Song province, claiming that the gold radiant grand sword master by Yu Wei had been taken over by the sword spirit of the holy sword, causing a terrible social impact. The generals of Song province were all panicking. Many of the generals of Song province also submitted memorials. Afterwards, the great general of Mingzhou, Qi Guanyin, who was loyal to the country, also submitted a memorial, stating that rumors were spreading all over Mingzhou, which also caused an extremely bad social impact. Everyone in Mingzhou was also very panicked. Many of the generals of Ming province also submitted memorials. There were even memorials from the governor of Ming province and a bunch of civil officials. All of them begged the imperial court to find out the truth and clarify the matter to pacify the people. But the emperor was cursing in his mind, because the Qin province had not said a word, and the Bai family had not done anything else. It was obvious that a certain bastard from the Bai family fort was smiling smugly. Even though they were in a different place, even though this was a plot that was almost guaranteed to succeed, that bastard had still somehow managed to turn the tables and force the emperor back to the negotiating table. He had released this kind of specious rumor and instigated the Song and Ming provinces to stir up trouble, but the emperor himself had not done anything. He had only wanted to express one thing. "Hey, grandson, do you want to come and negotiate again?" Chapter 712. There was a gentle breeze, and the weather was clear. There were no clouds in the sky of Mingzhou. It was blue and refreshing. After all, it was the northern scenery. It was different from the small bridges and flowing water in Jiangnan. It was a different kind of scenery. Early in the morning, Shui Baochai had already washed up and dressed. She pushed open the door and walked into the courtyard. She closed her eyes and enjoyed the morning sun and air. Someone also pushed open the door of the room next door. Lin Daiyu also walked out with her snake spear. She looked as if she hadn't woken up yet. Her eyes were drowsy. She held the snake spear and took a stance in the courtyard. The servant girls in charge of serving the two heard the noise. They were already used to it. They quickly went to prepare hot water and food. They quietly placed it in the room and then left. Lin and Shui were born in a big family in Jinling City. Their family background was very prominent, and they were extremely wealthy. Young ladies from such a big family must have been spoiled since they were young. As the saying goes, their 10 fingers never did any household chores. They had long been used to being served by others, but after entering the army, this habit slowly changed. The main reason was that Sun Lang was a maverick. Other than wearing the armor was too complicated, and he needed the help of his bodyguards. He did everything else himself. He didn't allow anyone to serve him. At that time, he had already made a name for himself. He had a lot of supporters and followers. Since he had a reputation and military achievements, then everything he did had a good explanation. This kind of behavior of doing everything himself was naturally praised as practicing, empathizing with the soldiers, and not treating people as slaves. Although Sun Lang didn't ask his subordinates and other generals to do this, everyone unconsciously changed their behavior. Perhaps it was because they were moved by Sun Lang's personality, or because they felt that they had to keep in step with the main general, or because they felt that if the main general did this, and they didn't, it would be too arrogant. Therefore, this trend slowly spread. A charismatic and outstanding military commander had an influence on the army under his command. At that time, Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu developed the habit of doing things themselves. After all, a young girl's heart was very complicated. She was sensitive and intelligent, blind and passionate. They knew that this second Master Bao was the husband that their grandmother had chosen for them. They also saw that the rumored ignorant and incompetent devil incarnate had become a hero whose name shook the 6 armies. If they had to marry someone, such a husband was naturally the best. Since they had such an impression in their hearts, The maverick who didn't need any bodyguards to serve him in daily life became a saint's way, showing the extraordinary bearing of a hero. So, since her future husband had already done so, how could she not follow him as his wife? Thus, the two spoiled young ladies learned how to take care of themselves. At that time, even fetching a basin of water and washing her hands was a bit of a stumble. Her actions of dressing and washing up were even more clumsy. Naturally, she had suffered a lot at the beginning. But now, taking care of herself had become a trivial matter. At that time, the secret competition between the two girls had also become an interesting memory with a knowing smile. Just like the various old matters of the past, they had already fermented into sour and sweet syrup. Time passed, and circumstances changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. It had already been many years. Everyone and everything had experienced the grinding of time. Everyone had changed. Shue Baochai quietly stood in the courtyard and sighed softly. The 8-zhang snake spear pierced through the air. The crescent-shaped tip of the spear cut through the air with a ripping whistle. Lin Daiyu put away the snake spear and glanced at her. "What are you sighing about?" Bao Jieji looked at Lin Mimi with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Why do you ask when you already know the answer?" Lin Mimi stood for a moment and then turned to leave. Eat. They washed their hands and sat down to eat. Although there weren't many types of breakfast, it was very attentive. Although it was the northern part of Mingzhou, it provided a rather authentic southern cuisine that took care of the tastes of the southerners. Shue Baochai softly praised, "Miss Zhao is truly attentive." Lin Daiyu snorted, "Fox spirit." Bao Jieji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Pinner, it's fine to say this in private, but you can't say in front of them. It's very impolite. We are guests after all. We came to Marquis Jingon Fu as guests, and they treated us with courtesy. Clothing, food, shelter, and transportation, we can't find a single mistake. They have already treated us well." Lin Daiyu glanced at her and disdainfully curled her lips. "You're also a fox spirit." Shue Baochai almost choked on the pastry and glared at Lin Mimi in dissatisfaction. Lin Daiyu faintly said, "Aren't we? Everyone clearly doesn't like each other, but they affectionately call each other sisters. It's so fake that it makes people want to vomit. If killing the other party didn't provoke Bao Giji's anger, I'm afraid that you and that Zhao Feihuang would have both brandished your swords at the same time, right?" Shue Baochai faintly said, "You can't say this to him." Lin Daiyu snorted, "Who wants to care about your matters?" Shue Baochai suddenly sighed, and there was some annoyance between her brows. Bao Jieji originally had a steady and intelligent personality and wouldn't let anyone know what she was thinking. But in front of Lin Daiyu, she was an exception. The unforeseen event 2 years ago made them sympathize with each other like never before. Under the mutual support of each other, they became good friends who talked about everything. There were some things that didn't need to be hidden from each other. She sighed, "Although I already knew that he had a personality that couldn't stay still and provoked many wild bees and butterflies in the military, to expect him to be like an old monk sitting in an ancient well without ripples. It's better to hope that the cat won't steal fish, but isn't this too much?" Lin Daiyu's tone was calm. "Is it too much? I actually feel that it's not too much." After Shue Baochai heard this, she actually laughed. She reached out and pinched Lin Daiyu's small face, mischievously saying, "The little vinegar jar that used to hide in a corner all day. When did you become so magnanimous? This virtuous and magnanimous appearance. You do have some elegance of the main wife." Younger sister Lin impatiently slapped away Bao Jieji's hand. "Annoying, don't touch me so casually. I'm saying, although there are many women in this Marquis Fu, there are almost none that are a real threat." When she said this, a kind of arrogance appeared on her face. But when this self-confidence or arrogance appeared on younger sister Lin's cold and pretended to be strong little face, it gave off a cute feeling of trying to be brave. Bao Jieji found it funny and thought of the story that her husband Darren had told before. That was one of the rare serious stories among the many strange stories that he had told. It was so serious that even normal girls could listen in. This was very rare. Her playful heart rose, and she smiled with narrowed eyes. Husband once talked about discussing heroes while drinking wine. Then today, in this marquee Jingon Fu, us two sisters, how about discussing heroes while drinking wine? Lin Daiyu had followed Sun Lang for a long time. She had never missed a single session of Sun Lang's popular Great Commander stories. Later on, she could even listen to terrifying stories like The Female Tutor by Jia and The Beautiful Girl Xianjing without any change in expression. She and Zhao Yunlong were considered outliers among Tian Yuan's female heroes. It was to the point that she could easily pick up on many of Sun Lang's jokes. As for discussing heroes while drinking wine, she naturally knew about it. So she blinked her eyes, and a trace of a smile appeared on her face. Okay. Shui Baochai pretended to shake her head and pretended to be serious as she said, Pin, this Marquis Jingon Fu's eldest Miss Zhao, the orphan of a martyr, a heroine among women. Her schemes surpass others, and her features are picturesque. She has deep feelings for her husband and is unyielding. She also has the housekeeper Su Qingwan, who is as close as a sister to her. Is she a hero? Lin Daiyu coldly said, Zhao Fei Huang is a fox spirit like you. She's good at scheming and never breaks. She always makes wedding clothes for others and is nothing to worry about. Even her housekeeper, Su Qingwan, has the life of a Tongfang servant girl. You can go fight with her yourself. Older sister Bao's smile stiffened, and she felt a bit of resentment towards her husband. When Lin Daiyu was living in the Jiafu, because of the family's circumstances, her personality became stubborn and competitive. She wasn't willing to show weakness in anything. She didn't get along well with the people in the Jiafu, and her words were sometimes harsh. But she was, after all, a daughter of a noble family. How harsh could her words be? It was just a little girl trying to be brave and competitive. Compared with now, the Lin Daiyu at that time was as pure as a little flower. But after she came to the army and came to her older brother Bao's side, it was as if she met a famous teacher and soared to the sky. She was influenced by Sun Lang day and night and learned how to scold people. 2 years ago, when she returned to the Jiafu, there was one time when she quarreled with Wang Shifeng. The result of the quarrel was unknown. Anyway, the two sides almost fought, and it almost went to the old ancestor. When everyone came to mediate, Lin Daiyu didn't move at all, but Feng Lotzi was so angry that his whole body trembled. Obviously, he didn't get the upper hand with his words. Sometimes, even Shui Baochai herself would be affected by Lin Daiyu's poisonous tongue. But older sister Bao was, after all, a magnanimous person and was very close to Lin Daiyu. She glared at her and asked, then Dongfang. Just as she started, Lin Daiyu impatiently said, Dongfang Xian and Sima Ping are all shrivel bean sprouts that haven't grown up. They are small characters that can't be shown on the stage. They are not worth mentioning. Why do you mention them? Lu Shu Jin is an old woman. She can breastfeed, but don't think about anything else. Zhao Yunlong, we don't need to care about him. As for that nuisance courier, that barbarian old woman, there's no need to mention her. Younger sister Lin pointed out everything like a machine gun and swept her gaze over the tigresses in the Marquis Fu. Older sister Bao was speechless, but in her heart, she was somewhat envious and resentful. Pin-er had learned 40 to 50% of her husband's fearless and flamboyant personality. No wonder he liked Pin-er so much. But immediately after, her heart sank, because there was still one person that hadn't been mentioned. This was also the person that Shui Baochai was most worried about. She softly said, then, who is? Lin Daiyu didn't even think and resolutely said, of course it is that cow spirit called Zhang Yinluo. In the entire Mingzhou city, she is the biggest threat. Didn't you see that when Zhao Fei Huang mentioned her, there was a bit of jealousy and fear in his voice? Older sister Bao was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded and said, yes, I also think so. That Ms. Zhang always gives me a strange feeling. She is heartless all day long. After seeing us, she even felt a bit guilty. But I also feel that husband really does care about her. Lin Daiyu snorted. That's because, before she finished speaking, the cry of the cow spirit called Zhang Yinluo suddenly came from outside. Older sister Shui. Older sister Lin. Sun Lang's blazing angel is approaching again. There's probably another letter coming. You guys prepare to receive it. I'll go call the others. Shui Baochai seemed to understand something. Lin Daiyu stuffed the rest of the pastry into her mouth. After swallowing, she glanced at her. It's because of this, do you understand? Chapter 7:13. By the time younger sister Lin and older sister Bao rushed to the practice field in the backyard of the Marquis estate, the majestic and magnificent blazing angel had already whizzed over from the horizon, getting closer and closer. The blazing angel death messenger soared into the air to welcome the blazing angel, designating a landing route for the blazing angel. Two of the most powerful war machines of the Lihua nation dancing together in the air. This was a rare sight even in the capital of the Lihua nation, St. Yuri Castle. It would almost certainly attract tens of thousands of people to come and watch. This was very normal, because the Lihua nation was the best in the world in terms of firearms. Religion and politics were united, and its military system was the Blazing Flames Order's famous Blazing Angel battle sequence. And the Blazing Angel stood at the peak of the Blazing Angel battle sequence. Its status and significance was equivalent to the 7 luminaries sword saint of the Hutu Empire. If there were 2 sword saints in the empire traveling side by side, it would definitely attract countless people to watch, cheer, greet, and take them as disciples. The Hutu Empire worshipped martial arts, and the people's pursuit and reverence for the great grandmasters were fanatical. Naturally, in the Blazing Flames divine kingdom that worshipped fire and was the best in the world in terms of firearms, the Blazing Angel was practically the messenger of fire in the eyes of the devout believers, a holy object of the religion. However, even though it was rare to see 2 blazing angels taking off and landing at the same time in St. Yuri Castle, this kind of thing had already happened many times in the sky above the Marquis of Jingan Estate. The girls who came to inquire stood far away. Zhao Yunlong stood at the very front with a gun in hand, cautiously looking at the blazing angel that belonged to Sun Lang that was slowly landing. Sun Lang had once warned her that this blazing angel had a strange origin and that she should not let down her guard at all times. Courier piloted the death messenger and landed not far away. He circled around the landing blazing angel to inspect it, then indicated to Zhao Yunlong that everything was normal before retreating. Chao Patao turned to Yin Luo and said, "We can go now." Yin Luo answered obediently. She was still a little reserved when it came to Zhao Yunlong. After all, the other party was a heroine of the Heaven's Origin sector who had made outstanding military achievements and whose fame had spread far and wide. She had even been Zhang Yinluo's idol in the past. However, after seeing the other party's appearance and performance in front of Sun Lang, her image as an idol quickly collapsed. It was even more collapsed than when she found out that Deer X and Guan XX were together. Sai, speaking of the heroes of Tianyuan, there are a few more. Dr. Liu was one thing, but there were also General Lin and General Shui, the invincible Lin Daiyu, and the reincarnated ghost hero Shui Baochai. In the Book of Heroines of the Heaven's Origin era, they were described as wise and powerful, but in reality, they were not like that. Not only were they not much older than me, but they were also involved with Sun Lang, that despicable Sun Lang. All the love debts he incurred in the past made me feel guilty whenever I saw them. What am I feeling guilty about? Yin Luo grumbled in his heart. Fortunately, although everyone was looking at her strangely, they were all very friendly. Even General Lin Daiyulin, who seemed to be the most difficult to get along with, would chat with her for a while, which made her feel quite flattered. As for the strange looks, she did not take them to heart at all. In fact, she had long been used to it. From the Vulture Palace to the time when she was studying abroad in Lihua, whether it was her sisters in the sect or her classmates in Lihua War Nun School, they had never looked at her chest with a normal gaze. With a chaotic mind, Yin Luo walked towards the blazing angel under the escort of Zhao Yunlong. She came up to the front and pressed her hand on the blazing angel's external armor. Because of the high-speed flight, the armor's outer shell was a little hot, but it was still within an acceptable range. She closed her eyes and called out in her heart. The blazing angel bloomed layer by layer like flower petals, the delicate war machine calmly unfolding in a noble manner. The cockpit was stuffed with things. There were wrapped boxes and bundled leather seals. Inluo walked forward and took out everything one by one. Zhao Yunlong beside her reached out and took a lot of things. After checking that there were no mistakes, Inluo reached out and patted the blazing angel. Wait here. Sun Lang said that this blazing angel had a mysterious origin and did not have the existence of an auxiliary saint soul. But for some reason, Inluo could still feel something, some ignorant response. She did not know if it understood Inluo's words, or if it was because of Sun Lang's previous programming. But after everything was taken out, the blazing angel's body slowly closed up and stood in a standby position. Before returning, it still had to wait for Sun Lang's reply and things. Seeing that there were no abnormalities, Courier also came out from the Death Messenger. The auxiliary Saint Soul was set to defense mode, closely guarding against the other blazing angel's movements. Mao Mei came over and looked at the pile of packages in Zhang Yinluo's hands. Where's mine? Where's mine? Inluo impatiently avoided her. Don't mess around. Give them out one by one. A table had already been set up at the edge of the training ground. The girls waited there eagerly like a group of puppies waiting for their meal. Inluo and Zhao Yunlong placed the two piles of things in their hands on the table, but the girls did not rush up to find their own things. They seemed to be observing something. After a while, Zhao Feihuang spoke first. The things are placed very messily, the packaging is also very casual, and the arrangement is not very orderly. From this, it seems that Sun Lang personally arranged and packed them. There is no fox spirit to arrange them for him. It seems that Sun Lang is very good at guarding outside. Many of the girls secretly curl their lips. Inluo thought of Sun Lang's hateful face, and then thought of her guilty conscience and restraint in front of Lin Daiyu and Schweb Baochai these few days. She even had to face the meaningful gaze of Miracle Dr. Liu. All of these made her very flustered. What was even more infuriating was that Sun Lang had not returned for so long. So, she snorted, maybe he doesn't dare to let the fox spirit know. Huh! Miss Zhao jumped up. She caught Inluo's words. Fox spirit? Is the word fox spirit something you can use? Who are you to Sun Lang? Inluo's face suddenly flushed red. Girls were thin-skinned, and even if she had feelings, she did not dare to say anything in front of those seniors. In any case, she was guilty. However, if it was Zhao Feihuang, then it was a different story. She would be afraid of anyone, but not Zhao Feihuang. Inluo was just about to retort when she heard Schweb Baochai kindly say, Miss Zhao and Miss Zhang are just joking. Why do you take it seriously? Everyone is looking forward to the letter. Since the guest had already spoken, it wasn't good for her to continue making a fuss. Inluo glared at Miss Zhao and casually picked up a letter. Looking at the cover, she was stunned for a moment. It's for Taoist by Xue? Why would Sun Lang think of Taoist priest by Xue? Why would he send a letter to him? Miss Zhao mischievously instigated. Open it and take a look. Maybe it's about the fox spirit. Inluo glared at her. How is that possible? This is obviously a letter to Taoist priest by Xue. How could it involve any woman? Moreover, even if it does, I can't open it and read it. You're always saying bad things. She put the letter aside and picked up the second letter. This letter is for Big Incense Head Zhang Jinyuan. Oh, I should call him Director Zhang now. This letter is for General Qi, Magistrate Liu. These were clearly official matters. This had happened before. Inluo put the letter aside and asked Miss Zhao to send a capable disciple to deliver the letter. After the letters were delivered, it was the turn of the girls. Everyone received a letter. Even their pet mount, Butler Sue and the shriveled bean sprout, Sima Ping, and the others received a letter. Apart from the letter, there were also gifts. Sima Ping was pleasantly surprised. She did not expect to receive a gift. Moreover, she was a young girl, so she was a little anxious. Therefore, she immediately opened the box. In the end, it was a box full of food. After Lu Shujin mercilessly appraised it, it was all for breast enlargement. Sima Ping flew into a rage and cursed. With this as an example, the other girls who wanted to open the box wisely stopped. Who knew what kind of embarrassing things Sun Lang would put in the box? However, although the box could not be opened, the letter could still be read. Inluo saw Zhao Yunlong and Courier had already opened the letter without hesitation. Therefore, she opened the cowhide envelope in her hand as well. There were 2 more envelopes inside. There were long words written on the envelopes. One of them read, "This is a letter full of hot words. You'd better bring it back to your room, rush into your bed, and read it 8 times with a red face. Remember it well. Then, hide it in a small locked box under your bed. Don't let anyone see it. Don't let anyone discover it. Otherwise, both of us are dead." This damned person. Inluo looked around vigilantly. Then, without batting an eyelid, she put the letter back into the cowhide envelope. She did not know if it was an illusion, but she felt that the other people's expressions were also a little uncomfortable. Then, Inluo took out the second letter. There were also words written on it. "You can open this letter now and discuss it with the others. Then, you can give it to your father." The girl's heart jumped. She opened the letter and read it a few times. Her expression became serious. Sima Ping and the other little girls had already skipped away, while the adults who were present stood in place and read the letter. They had one thing in common, which was that when they read the letter, they still held the cowhide envelope tightly. Inluo finished reading the letter first. The others were a little slower. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, no one said anything. It was Zhao Yunlong who broke the silence. "It seems that the matter in Qinzhou will not be finished in a short time. It's good that we can use Qinzhou to fight with the imperial court. It's better than fighting in Mingzhou." Chao Patao said, "Sun Lang said that he can discuss the specific situation in operation with you. Since that's the case, let's discuss it. Who should we start with?" Chapter 714. In a reception pavilion of the Marquis Fu, a meeting came to an end. Inluo slowly stretched her body, that beautiful sight in front of her chest bouncing along with her movements, immediately attracting subtle gazes from all directions. The milky cow's expression stiffened. Then she smiled mockingly and placed her 2 arms on the table, using it as a cover. It was said that the most dominant and mocking action that an overgrown girl could do was to place her chest on the table. It was said that every school and every class would have a similar school legend. Logically speaking, in this room full of girls, Zhang Yinluo was the most eye-catching, but everyone was very familiar with Sun Lang's personality. They knew his tastes and preferences, so they were very concerned about this matter. Under this kind of situation, Inluo naturally became the target of everyone's ire. Inluo's heart was miserable. "I didn't want to grow so big, It's not good to be so big, However, even though this was the truth, she definitely couldn't say it out loud. Because ever since she was young, she had received countless experiences and lessons that could be summed up in one sentence. Never, never, ever complain about the disadvantages of having big breasts in front of other women. So she could only lower her head and say in a soft voice, "Then I'll go deliver the letter to my father." This was Marquis Jinggan Fu, so when it came to serious matters, Miss Zhao naturally acted as the host of the meeting. She wanted to use this chance to secretly change the concept and establish her position as the main wife who gave orders, but whether the other girls would accept this was another matter altogether. But Miss Zhao was Miss Zhao after all. Even though her heart didn't have good intentions, she wasn't muddle-headed at all when it came to important matters. She thought for a bit and said, "This matter is only for us to discuss in private to set the tone and clearly divide the work. But the specific operations still need to be coordinated." She dipped her finger in the teacup and drew a few lines on the table. Sun Lang's plan is to quickly establish a foothold in Qinzhou, connecting the 3 provinces of Qin, Song, and Ming together and responding to each other from afar. My family should already be in Sun Lang's pocket. Qinzhou's great general Wang Wuan also shouldn't be able to escape Sun Lang's palm. then what we should do is naturally to help him establish a foothold in Qinzhou and expand his influence. Just as she finished speaking, Shui Baochai faintly smiled and naturally continued the conversation. Wang Xiaobao, is also husband's old acquaintance in the past. It's just that husband is jumpy and Wang Xiaobao is as steady. Their interactions only with business, and there is not much personal friendship. Even if husband has a way to convince Wang Xiaobao, he's not one of us, so he still has to make arrangements in order to occupy the initiative and advantage. Advantage. Older sister Bao and young Miss Zhao's gazes were instructing in the air. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, the opposing vixens colliding flashed by. Then, they both faintly smiled and averted their gazes. Inluo counted on his fingers. Marquis Jinggan Fu, Embroidery Spring Hall, and also our family. These three parties have business connections with Qinzhou's by family. At the same time, we also need to contact the trade route at Lihua and open up a route to Qinzhou. At the same time, we also need the full cooperation of Mingzhou and Songzhou's government. The three northern provinces of the empire will unite and then drag Lihua in. This kind of large-scale effort, how much time will it take? Zhao Feihuang smiled. The accounts can't be calculated like this. If it succeeds, the benefits will be really great. When Sun Lang told me about the East India Company before, even I, a woman, felt my blood boil. It's just a trading company, but it has its own army and territory. It can even raise an army and destroy a country. How awe-inspiring is that? This kind of good thing cannot be left to Zhang Jinyuan alone. We also have to join in the fun. Inluo shook his head and said, I'm not talking about this. I'm saying that an operation of this scale will take at least a few months to completely settle down. Is there enough time? Her words came out of nowhere, but Zhao Feihuang was startled. He understood. Of course, there were also other people who understood. Zhao Yunlong's voice did not fluctuate. Take one step and look 3 steps ahead. Sun Lang has always done things this way. Since he has the heart to conquer Qinzhou, it means that he has already made preparations to consolidate at every step for a long time. When Inluo and young Miss Zhao heard this, they looked at each other. Their gazes were somewhat startled. Sun Lang has already made preparations for a long time. After getting along with each other for a few months, they had become very familiar with Sun Lang. Sun Lang was a bold guy. He had no concept of being punished for what he said at all. His broken mouth really said whatever he wanted to say. What he usually said was either, I really want the proletarian revolution to overthrow the backward feudal forces, or I want to kill my way into the imperial capital and take over the position of the bird. It could be said that he was very rampant. As time went by, they gradually learned more things. They knew that Sun Lang had an unextinguishable flame of revenge in his heart. They knew that he had a persistence and hatred for the emperor. It was just that he was limited by some reasons and could not immediately put his revenge into action. No one knew better than the two of them about the persistence and hatred in Sun Lang's heart. Usually, they could often see Sun Lang sitting on the roof, looking in the direction of the imperial capital in a daze. If the book of life and death of the king of hell appeared in front of him, he would definitely open it at the fastest speed and then cross the column of Huda royal family from top to bottom without hesitation. It was precisely because they understood the hatred and persistence in Sun Lang's heart that they had no doubts about Sun Lang's desire for revenge. Even if they suddenly heard the news that Sun Lang had rushed into the imperial capital alone with a sword and massacred the imperial palace, they would not feel the slightest bit surprised. They would only feel disappointed and worried. But it was this kind of Sun Lang, the Sun Lang who had an unbreakable stubbornness, the Sun Lang who had an impatient temper, the Sun Lang who planned to kill his way into the imperial capital and seize the position of the bird. This time, he had actually made slow preparations, step by step, and had even begun to make strategic arrangements in Qinzhou. That was why they found it strange. But the reason, did they really not understand? Inluo and Miss Zhao looked at each other and suddenly noticed a slight fluctuation in each other's eyes. What was the reason that could make this invincible impatient slow down the pace of revenge? The atmosphere suddenly became silent. No one said anything. Zhang Yinluo, Zhao Feihuang, Lu Shujin, Zhao Yunlong. They had more or less touched the real world in Sun Lang's heart, and they also knew what Sun Lang's current behavior meant. It meant that the thing that he had persisted for more than 2 years seemed to have undergone some subtle changes. After a while, Zhao Yunlong said indifferently, "Don't think too much. Speaking of which, this is actually a good thing. Let's take it slow. It's safer to take it slow. Besides, there won't be any accidents." It seems that the things that happened in the Bai clan castle changed his mind. Bai Yue finally did something good before he died. The girls slowly nodded. After the things that happened in the Bai clan castle, they received a message from Sun Lang. Sun Lang told them about Bai Yue. Bai Yue's past, Bai Yue's Dawang Mountain, Bai Yue's madness, Bai Yue's despair, and his final decision. Sun Lang wrote a very detailed letter. Instead of talking about this matter, it was better to sort out his own feelings. They used to be as close as father and son. They drew their swords against each other in the Dawang Mountain. Their loyalty and martial spirit were trampled on by schemes. Their noble souls were tainted by darkness. In the end, their scarred souls found the meaning of being a hero. This letter touched the girls deeply. Whether it was Zhao Yunlong and Lu Shujin who already knew Sun Lang, or Zhang Yinluo and Zhao Feihuang who met Sun Lang after the war. Sun Lang's plain tone, they went through Sun Lang's memories. It was as if they were there and witnessed the final outcome. They were more moved and shocked than that. The Sun Lang they saw was a wanderer 2 years after the war. He was all smiles and frivolous. He regarded the so-called honor and pride as nothing. For such a person, no matter how strong his martial arts were, no matter how many witnesses he had, it was hard to believe that he was once the brightest star in the 6 armies of Tianyuan. But after reading the letter, they all smiled faintly. Sun Lang said that before Bai Yue died, he finally regained his identity as a hero of Tianyuan. Just like the all-powerful Gold Radiance Grand Sword Master in his memory, he proudly welcomed the end of the hero. But in the eyes of the girls, it was more than that. Perhaps even Sun Lang himself didn't realize what he had done. The Sun Lang who stubbornly saved Bai Yue's life and wanted to cure his madness. Finally, the Sun Lang who extended his hand to the crippled Bai Yue and encouraged the old man in his memory, who was like a teacher and a father, to stand up again. The crisscrossing sword energy opened up the final path for him. The Sun Lang who watched Bai Yue charge into the air and kill Rushu. The Sun Lang who finished the last battle with Bai Yue and freed the old man from the nightmare of the Great War of Tianyuan. He hugged him when he was on the verge of death and accepted his apology. Such a Sun Lang also shone with the light of a hero. His sword-like posture was not inferior to when he was unparalleled in the world. Yinluo and the others saw the hero-like Sun Lang that they had never seen before. As for Zhao Yunlong and Lu Shujin, they saw the old man they had not seen for a long time. They were all agitated, wishing that they could immediately fly to Sun Lang's side. They were excited and proud, as well as tender feelings that could not be dissolved and beautiful blessings. In this world, which girl didn't want the person of their dreams to be an indomitable hero who could support the heavens and earth, who could look up to him with a clear conscience and eternal light? Perhaps what happened at Bai Clan Castle was the most important step for Sun Lang to take towards the light. In fact, this was also very good. They looked at each other and all of a sudden burst of laughter. Why should they be conflicted? No matter what choice they made, Sun Lang was Sun Lang. As long as he didn't leave, as long as they stayed by his side, no matter what, it was good. Nothing else mattered. As if they had reached a consensus, the silent atmosphere was replaced by a joyful atmosphere. But this was not the case. The next moment, a faint sigh sounded from the side. The girls' hearts stirred as they turned their heads. Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu sat alone on the side. Their eyes contained an indescribable sadness. They could not understand. They could not understand at all. They did not know what everyone was talking about, nor did they know why everyone suddenly laughed. They did not know anything because they had never truly understood Sun Lang. Shue Baochai forced a smile and said softly, "I'm a little envious of everyone." Chapter 7:15. In the silent flower hall, Shue Baochai's gentle voice slowly whispered, "I'm a little envious of everyone." She said. She had always been a girl who was as careful as hair. Today, she realized that terrifying barrier. Yes, barrier. She sighed softly. Pinner and I haven't seen husband for more than 2 years. Things have remained the same, but people have changed. Although he is still the same person as before, I always feel that there's a lamentable and thick barrier between us. I don't even know why Miss Zhao and Miss Zhang were silent before. Lu Shujin's expression changed slightly. She sighed softly. Sister Bao said in a daze, "Is there something wrong with taking Qin Zhou and planning slowly? If husband wants to take revenge and vent his anger, he naturally has to threaten the situation and force the imperial capital. If he doesn't take Qin Zhou, grab chips, and gain support, what else can he do? In the end, he is the marshal of the empire, a subject of Hutu, and the grandson of the Jia family. Can he openly rebel? Let's not talk about the fact that this is the Jiang country that he and countless fellow soldiers who died in the calamity have built with their own hands. If he raises the flag of rebellion high and meets the soldiers of the imperial court on the battlefield, how will he face his former fellow soldiers? Where will he place the ancestors of the Jia mansion? I don't know. I don't know what husband is thinking. The emperor has lost his virtue and harmed loyal people. Naturally, it is greatly wrong, and he must vent his anger. Now that the war has ended and the world is at peace, there is no need to defend against foreign enemies. The struggle between the power of the monarch and the power of the subjects will surface. The emperor intends to take back his power, and the subjects have long been on guard. Now that husband has returned to the court, he can take advantage of the situation and obtain the assistance of the officials of the court to suppress the power of the monarch together. In this way, forcing the emperor back to the depths of the palace, preventing the imperial edict from leaving the imperial city, and even overturning the court and ruling over the empire. Isn't this the best choice with the right time, the right place, and the right people? Shue Baochai's tone was very erratic, as blank as her expression. But why does everyone think that husband will rebel? Hearing the news that he is preparing to take Qin Zhou and plan slowly, they instead feel it is very strange. General Zhao, Miss Zhang and Miss Zhao don't understand this logic. How come you don't understand it? Zhao Yunlong didn't answer. Shue Baochai didn't seem to want to answer. She stared at her hands and said in a daze, "Miss Zhao has a pure heart. Miss Zhang is rough but delicate. As for General Yunlong, you can do whatever you want with your husband, but you can't be careless with big things. My husband once said that existence is reasonable and everything has a reason. Your behavior is so abnormal. There must be a reason." The girls looked at each other, but no one knew what to say. Shue Baochai's smile was somewhat sorrowful. "I keep feeling that there are some things that pin her, and I don't know. Husband is hiding things from us. General Zhao and Divine Dr. Liu are also hiding things from us, but what exactly it is, I don't dare to think or guess. We've been separated by life and death with our husband. To be able to meet him again is already a blessing from the heavens. No matter what, as long as he's still him, that's all that matters." But at this point, Shue Baochai couldn't continue. Tears like beads slid down her bright and clean skin. In her heart, she had long viewed Sun Lang as her husband, even if they hadn't been engaged back then. After the Battle of the Great Wilderness and the news of Sun Lang's death in battle, she still resolutely announced that she would marry into the Jia family to observe filial piety for her dead husband, and she had already decided to observe filial piety for the rest of her life. As for later, when the clouds parted and the moon appeared, it made her so happy that it was as if she was in a dream. She had originally thought that as long as her husband was still alive, as long as her husband was still willing to recognize her, nothing else mattered. But she was wrong. After not seeing each other for 2 years, her husband had become much more distant from her. There was even a faint sense of vigilance and concealment. She didn't know what her husband was concealing and guarding against. They were clearly husband and wife. They had even crossed death. Was there anything that couldn't be said? Especially when she discovered that only she and Pin didn't know. But Zhao Yunlong knew, Lu Shujin knew, Zhang Yinluo and Zhao Fei Huang seemed to also know. She didn't dare to think about what this meant. There were too many frightening things for her to think about. Why didn't her husband use his real name and instead call himself Sun Lang? In these 2 years, why didn't her husband return home even once? Even now, he lacked interest in returning to Jinling. He also didn't take the initiative to ask her anything about the Jia family. There were too many suspicious points. She didn't dare to think about them carefully. She had originally planned to continue waiting for her sincerity to move metal and stone. Just like how she had waited for 2 years with infatuation until her husband finally returned. She had originally thought that she could continue to wait, but she was wrong. Because she was afraid. Because the last time she waited, there was already no worse result. The worst was that she would guard her husband's cenotaph for the rest of her life, and then go to the netherworld to continue their previous fate. But this time, she really didn't know what kind of result there would be from waiting. This kind of loss and fear could even make the usually calm and collected Bao Jiejia, who didn't bat an eyelid, directly shed tears, because this involved the thing she cared about the most. Seeing Shue Baochai cry, the girls all panicked. But before they could do anything, Lin Daiyu took out a handkerchief and handed it to Shue Baochai. Then she held one of Bao Jiejia's hands. She raised her head and looked around at everyone. Her gaze finally fell on Zhang Yinluo's face. Lin Daiyu's question was concise and comprehensive. "Can't you say?" Yinluo showed a distressed expression and sighed. "Where did this come from?" Lin Daiyu thought for a moment. "It seems that you don't know much." Then, Zhao Yunlong. Zhao Yunlong flatly refused. "Sun Lang will tell you this matter personally. I won't say anything." Lin Daiyu nodded. "Okay, Bao Jijia and I will leave for Qinzhou now." Zhao Yunlong shook his head. "No, the situation now is delicate. You can't run around. Otherwise, you will be targeted by people with ulterior motives and will cause trouble for him. You should wait a little longer." Lin Daiyu said, "Then let's write a letter to mention it." Zhao Yunlong said stiffly, "That won't do. There have been a lot of things happening recently. If you write a letter, it will be of no use except to annoy him and make him hesitate. When it's your turn, it will naturally be your turn. Before that, think of a way yourselves." These words were a little unreasonable, but it was obviously Zhao Yunlong's style. She considered things from Sun Lang's point of view. As for other people's feelings, sorry, Chao Patao didn't care. Lin Daiyu's small face turned cold. Zhao Yunlong stared back unceremoniously. "What are you looking at? Sun Lang won't leave you behind." The smell of gunpowder grew stronger. Lu Shujin, who had been watching from the sidelines, didn't say a word. She understood Zhao Yunlong's thoughts very well. It was normal for Chao Patao to be angry, because that day on the outskirts of Mingzhou, Sun Lang's attitude had already explained everything. He had been summoned to this world and forced to fight for 6 years in another person's identity. Now that he had obtained freedom, he would never want to return to that nightmarish past, and even wanted to make a clean break with everything from the past. But because of Shue Baochai and Lin Daiyu, Sun Lang's attitude had actually subtly wavered. At the very least, he didn't directly reveal his identity and origin. Instead, he chose to continue hiding it, even if it meant that before everything was revealed, he had to live in his past identity. Sun Lang also did this because he didn't want Lin Daiyu and Shue Baochai to feel the slightest bit of shock and bewilderment. Sun Lang had done so much for the two of them, and it could even be said that he had made a great sacrifice. Even a heartless woman like Zhao Yunlong would feel sour in her heart. I also feel sour in my heart. Damn it, the troublesome Jia Mansion. That's right, the root of everything was the Jia Mansion and Sun Lang's past identity. With this layer of awkward relationship, Sun Lang felt that his hands and feet were tied when he faced Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai. And now, it seemed that the matter of the Zhao mansion would have to come to an end sooner or later. Looking at Zhao Yunlong and Lin Daiyu, who were at daggers drawn, Lu Shujin hesitated for a moment. She wondered if she should go out and say a few words to smooth things over. To be honest, she didn't really want to go out, because she was also jealous, so jealous that she wanted to explode. But at this moment, Yin Luo hurriedly stood up and waved her hands between the two of them. Perhaps because she was very anxious, her movements were very large, to the extent that the pair of objects in front of her chest were also actively making very conspicuous movements. It looked like she was looking for trouble. Yin Luo didn't realize this point. She wanted to say something polite, but the auras of Lin Daiyu and Zhao Yunlong were too strong, and they were both famous generals of Tian Yuan that she had previously looked up to. For a moment, she didn't know what to say, but she had to say something. Therefore, her brain heated up, and a sentence suddenly popped out in her heart. Without thinking, she blurted it out. "Don't fight, don't fight." The air suddenly became quiet. Zhao Yunlong and Lin Daiyu's expressions became rather strange. The next moment, Lin Daiyu couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing. Sun Lang was a transmigrator. Sun Lang didn't want to forget this identity, didn't want to forget his hometown. But back then, in the army, he was alone, and his martial arts had yet to reach great success. He had to keep this secret and play his role well. He couldn't meet people and tell them that he came from another world. Therefore, there was only one way left to remind himself to remember. Nonsense, jokes, science, stories. He did his best to leave his mark in this world. Whatever he thought of, he would say it so that others would know, so that he wouldn't forget. And the interesting and practical joke of "don't fight" were the benefits of Jinkala. Whoever says it right will get it, was naturally said many times. And this joke was very familiar to both Zhao Yunlong and Lin Daiyu. The former was inseparable from Sun Lang, and the latter almost never missed any of Sun Lang's story meetings. Therefore, when Yin Luo accidentally said that sentence, everyone actually got it. At least, with Lin Daiyu's smile, the hostile atmosphere actually eased just like that. Fortunately, by chance, Sun Lang's messy things still had such an effect. Yin Luo let out such a sigh in his heart. Speaking of which, why did I have to do something like stop a fight? Really, Sun Lang, you have to remember to thank me properly. Yin Luo curled his lips in his heart and said softly, "Sisters, can I say something?" Chapter 716. That night, the moon and stars hung high in the sky, and the air was cool and refreshing. Because they were on the mountain and surrounded by a secluded garden, the breeze was cool and refreshing. Walking in the silence and listening to the occasional chirping of birds, everything around them made them feel relaxed and happy. This was the Shou Sword Garden, the core of Bai Castle. It used to be where Bai Yue lived in seclusion, but now was occupied by his son Lang. For the past few days, he had been giving orders here and influencing the entire Bai family. After the Bai clan fort went through such a drastic change, the morale of the people was shaken, and danger lurked everywhere. Fortunately, Sun Lang handled the situation well, and Wei Zhongxian and the others worked hard to keep the morale of the Bai clan under control. After all, with the support of Wang Wuan, the great general of the Qin province, and the spreading of public opinion, the elites of the Bai clan saw a glimmer of hope. After all, as long as the Bai clan remained standing, it would be good for everyone. Using promises and facts to give them hope, and using blood and death to instill fear in their hearts. The way to control people did not need to be too complicated. Sun Lang walked slowly on a path in the Shou Sword Garden. After dinner, Xia Wei went back to her room. For the past 2 days, she had been reading some of Bai Yue's works. The little fairy seemed to want to organize the old man's life. It didn't matter, just let her be. Old Wei and the others were very busy. There were a lot of things that required their coordination and attention. Talents were always scarce, especially those in charge of execution. In the future, they would only be busier. Today, he wrote a letter to Mingzhou and officially decided to connect the 3 provinces and form Lihua in the north to expand his territory. This kind of steady and steady approach was poles apart from his previous mentality of killing his way into the imperial capital and seizing the bird's position. Sometimes he felt strange. Compared to before, his mentality had undergone some strange changes. For example, he was no longer aggressive and full of resentment. Was it because he had let go of his hatred? No, there wasn't. The memories of the great desolate mountain were still burning like raging flames, licking at his soul. Even the slightest echo would cause intense pain that tore at his soul. Moreover, within this hatred, there was a new hatred. Bai Yue's story had come to an end. His Tianyuan War had come to an end. The souls of his fellow soldiers had been laid to rest. But the pain of the old man would not be forgotten. The emperor still owed Bai Yue an explanation, and this explanation, he would seek it for the old man. But, for some reason, even though his hatred did not decrease and instead increased, the resentment and stubbornness in his heart had dissipated a lot. He looked in the direction of the imperial capital, and the first thing that appeared in his heart was not the countdown to his revenge, but the cold calmness and calmness. He seemed to no longer be obsessed with the urgent revenge. He realized that his mentality had changed, but he could not describe this change very well. The only thing he was certain of was that Bai Yue had changed him. When Bai Yue stood up, when Bai Yue transformed into a sword, and when Bai Yue disappeared from his embrace, something had changed. It should be a good thing. At least, Xia Wei's smile had become brighter these 2 days. As for Old Wei and Little Ye, they had been joking more and more these 2 days, and their attitudes had become much more casual. In just a few days, they had gotten rid of the estrangement from 2 years of not seeing each other, and once again found a feeling of fighting side by side. They should be very happy. As for you, what would you think? Sun Lang looked in the direction of Ming Zhou with a gentle smile on his face. He was already somewhat impatient. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't get away from Qin Zhou, he would have rushed back already. After personally freeing Bai Yue, he felt both relieved and empty. He really wanted to put everything aside and return to Ming Zhou, to their side. Only there would he feel at ease. But he could not do that. He still had many important things to do. Tensei Province, the Emperor, and the looming shadow behind the royal family. The conflict and hatred between Sun Lang and them were deeper than the sea, and there was no possibility of forgiveness. There had to be a winner and a loser. Before that, he could not indulge in the illusion of gentleness and peace. Even if it was to create a truly peaceful and stable environment for them, his war had to continue. Bai Yue's War of Heaven's origin was over, but his own war was far from over. His enemies were still alive in the world, and they were plotting pathetic schemes in the shadows. He had to continue fighting, defeat them, destroy them, and then put an end to everything. So wait for me. When this war is over, we will... Oh, you can't say that. It was too close. Sun Lang looked at the distant sky with a smile. Under the moonlight, in the dark sky, a small that soaked in moonlight approached from afar and rapidly descended. The blazing angel, acting as a courier, had taken off last night and rushed to Ming Zhou through the night. Now, it had successfully returned with the thoughts and letters from the other side. He had spent the entire night writing yesterday. In order to prevent the situation of inequality, he had racked his brains and written a custom-made mushy love letter with different content for each person. Basically, this was the limit of what an old otaku youth could do. Of course, as an insidious otaku who was good at judging others by their own standards, he judged women with his own narrow-mindedness. He always felt that this extremely mushy love letter would be taken out by a certain girl to mock him in the future. So, just in case, he also did something to the letter. Yes, it was the trick that had completely defeated Bai Zhiming. He had used a special method to inject the power of the holy sword into a special ink, and the words he wrote contained the superior sword intent and the essence of the 7 luminaries. At that time, Bai Zhiming had hidden Sun Lang's letter well, but after taking it out, the content had completely changed. This insurance trick used to trick people was also used by Sun Lang on his own love letter. This kind of person could actually Sun Lang, who had done this kind of thing, did not feel that he was destined to be alone for the rest of his life. He smiled and controlled the blazing angel remotely, controlling it to slowly land on a pre-marked grassland. The smile on his face became gentler and gentler, filled with expectation. He was looking forward to seeing the girls' replies, looking forward to what kind of gifts they would give him, and also, as I said before, Sun Lang was a sinister otaku. This kind of person put all his limited energy into causing endless trouble, so he had a wide range of ideas and was very happy. He was good at deducing other things from one case, and would often do shocking things. For example, after he had done something to the love letter to ensure that no girl with bad intentions could use it to laugh at him in the future, he suddenly thought of something else. Since they can't do it, doesn't that mean I can do it as I please? So this kind of person could actually... The blazing angel landed on the ground, then opened up. The gorgeous exterior armor opened up like flower petals, revealing the cockpit that was stuffed to the brim. Sun Lang's dog eyes immediately lit up. He first looked around vigilantly and scanned his surroundings with his spiritual sense. After making sure that there were no spies in the surroundings, Sun Lang reached out with both hands and hugged all the letters and items in the cockpit. After carrying them out, he kicked the blazing angel's leg armor. Sesame, door close. With a soft mechanical sound, the blazing angel folded up its parts and went into standby mode. Then, Sun Lang hugged the big and small bags in his hands, and with a sneaky smile, he ran back to his residence. Let's hope that tonight will be a great harvest of dark history. Returning to his room, closing the door, and putting away the things, he did it as fast as a gust of wind. Sun Lang pointed with his finger, and the oil lamp lit up without a flame, illuminating the room. Sun Lang locked the door and rubbed his hands, his face full of anticipation. It was just like the first time he bought a set of bliss from Taobao, including a flying cup, moisturizing oil, and a small book. After waiting for several long days, he finally received a call from the delivery boy and then went downstairs without a change in his expression to retrieve the bag. Then he carried the box with the words sports and recreation written all the way upstairs. Then he used a slightly impatient tone and peak acting skills to deal with his parents. What did you buy? After that, he returned to his room as if nothing had happened and instantly revealed the classic face of the city. He. Sun Lang rubbed his hands and muttered to himself in a very despicable tone. Let's see who's better first. Having too many girlfriends is really troublesome. Ayaya, should I flip the brand? But soon, Sun Lang found that he didn't have to worry about this kind of thing because no one wrote a name on the package, and he didn't know if it was intentional or not. Yes, unlike Sun Lang, who put everything in the cockpit after arranging everything, the girls were, after all, meticulous, so they were very organized and placed things very clearly. In each package, there was a letter and a gift from each girl to Sun Lang. Then, let's go from left to right. Sun Lang opened the first package, flipped open the envelope, and smiled. Ah, Miss Zhao. He took a chair, sat down, and opened the letter. Just after reading 2 paragraphs, he laughed. The words were very Miss Zhao Fei Huang style, that kind of coquettish style. After reading only 2 lines, his mind was filled with the image of Zhao Fei Huang holding the corner of his clothes, staring at him with watery eyes, and saying this and that in a coquettish tone. Of course, there was also the bold, open, and unrestrained hot words. She seemed to be very satisfied with Sun Lang's mushy love letter, and then returned it with even more mushy words. He felt that using this love letter to tease and threaten her wouldn't work at all. No, it should be useful. Ms. Zhao will definitely realize this kind of play and then deliberately cooperate with me. I feel that if I do this, I will be the one being teased by her. There were also 2 letters, a personal letter and a business letter. In the personal letter, she acted coquettishly, expressed her longing, hoped that Sun Lang would come back, reported that everything was fine, and complained about the cow spirit. In the business letter, Miss Zhao's tone was much more normal, with the tone of an astute and capable woman. She carefully discussed with Sun Lang about expanding her influence in Qinzhou, and the plan to annex the Bai family. She always separated business and private matters very well. After Sun Lang finished reading the letter, he carefully put it away and then took the box in Miss Zhao's package. Miss Zhao didn't say what was inside the box, but it was light as a feather. Sun Lang opened the box, and then his expression became very subtle. Chapter 717. Yes, it was white, embroidered with beautiful patterns. The material was very soft, very smooth to the touch, very good to the touch. It was the best fabric. Smelling it, there was a refreshing fragrance, charming, intoxicating, and moving. Sun Lang put down the thing in his hand without changing his expression. According to his vision, touch, and smell, he felt that he could completely determine what the thing in front of him was. Its scientific name was underwear. Simply put, it was ancient female underwear. And the full name of this underwear should be Original Zhao Fei Huang's high-end tube top. At least, it was the golden quality. Yes, original. There was also a piece of fine silk inside the box. Sun Lang unfolded it, and inside, there were fine and beautiful words written with an eyebrow pencil. Sun Lang, wearing it for 3 days. Please enjoy. Ah, this annoying little demon. In your eyes, am I that kind of person? Sun Lang's face was full of anger, and he threw the underwear in his hand. The soft white silk fabric drew a beautiful arc in the air and then fell on the bed. But speaking of which, underwear, Sun Lang's heart was moved. He seemed to have thought of a good idea. But now was not the time to think about this. He glanced at the underwear lying on the bed and then withdrew his gaze. After putting away Miss Zhao's package, he opened the second package. This one was from Chao Patao. Zhao Yunlong's letter was very thin, which was very in line with her personality. This fellow was actually not very good with words. She was often used to using her hands to do things rather than using her mouth to speak. Even if it was to express her feelings, it was the same. Compared to saying the words, "I love you," Zhao Yunlong was more accustomed to suddenly exploding without saying anything, pushing you into a haystack, and then rushing in to hug you and bite you. Sure enough, Chao Patao's response to Sun Lang's mushy love letter was only a few concise and comprehensive paragraphs. Want to rape you. I can't hold it in any longer. I've already locked up the letter because I've already read it 76 times. If I read it again, I'm worried that I won't be able to control myself and rush to Qinzhou to rape you. My heart is beating very fast, and my body is burning up. We probably can't be brothers anymore. I'll wait for your return. Sun Lang's expression became more and more subtle. What kind of expression should I show at this moment? Wow, what are you doing? I'm already trying to be romantic. Can't you cooperate with me? As for the official letters, Zhao Yunlong was much more talkative. She gave Sun Lang a lot of suggestions and a list of Song Province's generals and martial artists that could be trusted and mobilized. The package was filled with blank documents stamped with messages from Song Province's great general, as well as tokens and arrows. In other words, as long as Sun Lang casually wrote on those documents, it would be a military order from Song Province's great general, and he could use it to mobilize most of Song Province's military forces. If it wasn't for the fact that the great general seal was still useful, Chao Patao would probably have directly sent his own military seal over. Sun Lang locked up the box filled with documents and arrows and sealed it with a layer of sword energy. After ensuring that there were no mistakes, he put the box aside and opened the third package. This package was heavier, and he didn't know what was inside. After Sun Lang opened it, he was slightly stunned. It was actually Yinluo's. After a slight hesitation, Sun Lang opened the letter. Yinluo occupied a very special place in Sun Lang's heart in every aspect. After all, this cute and straightforward girl was the girl with the biggest breasts Sun Lang had ever seen. She was also the girl who had endured Sun Lang's sexual harassment the most. No matter how one looked at it, she was very important to Sun Lang. Therefore, last night, Sun Lang was the first to write a love letter to Yinluo. Of course, he was also the one who put in the most effort. His words were mushy, his hints were numerous, and his intentions were lustful. It was the kind that could be dealt with directly by the police. He was very much looking forward to Luo writing something similar to Moses Roy. After all, she was a cute and shy girl. It would be very interesting to tease her with such a love letter in the future. However, his thoughts fell through. Even though it was a private letter, Luo's tone was filled with complaints and reprimands. She disliked him for being too undignified, disliked him for being too frivolous, always saying such shameless and crazy things to humiliate others. In all honesty, these are all words from the bottom of my heart. Sun Lang imagined Inluo's appearance when she wrote these words. She must be panting with anger, her face red, with some indescribable shyness and joy, and also some dissatisfied anger. It was tiring to rub against him like this. Continuing to read, Sun Lang's expression was gentle and calm. His restless mood also gradually calmed down. He looked at Inluo's letter, just like that young girl by his side, raising her finger like a naggy old mother, chattering on about this and that. But when he heard her voice, he did not feel irritated at all. Instead, he relaxed, wanting time to stop here, wanting to sleep. The first half of the letter was probably complaining. First, she complained that Sun Lang wrote some strange things. Then she complained that Sun Lang did not come back earlier. She said that the current Marquis Jingon Fu had become very strange. Because Sun Lang was not here, when a group of women gathered together, many things would happen. Moreover, everyone was looking at her with a strange gaze. But the majority of them were Tianyuan heroes from books. Their backgrounds were frightening, and their military achievements were also very high. This made her feel very guilty. She did not know why, but she felt very guilty. Complaints like this, and she also vaguely expressed her hope that Sun Lang would come back earlier. In the second half of the letter, the young girl's sincerity slowly revealed itself. That shy and timid tone reluctantly praised Sun Lang. But as she wrote, the protective shell of the girl gradually dissipated, and her tone gradually became more straightforward. Yes, it was praise. She said that after listening to Sun Lang's narration of the battle at the Bai clan fort, although she felt sorry for the death of Senior Bai's esteemed grandfather, she was also happy that he had been freed. However, what she was most happy about was that Sun Lang was able to calmly face the scars of his past, his forgiveness, his helping hand, and his righteous retribution. She said that she regretted not seeing everything with her own eyes. She said these words very straightforwardly. She said that she was very happy and delighted that Sun Lang had made such a choice. Not long after I met you, I sensed that you might be a general who participated in the Great War of Tianyuan, but you were so young and so mischievous. At that time, I really could not imagine that you were a valiant man who dominated the battlefield and killed 10 people. At that time, I was very doubtful. But later, when I met Hu Huaishou and General Zhao, I became more and more surprised. Because not only were you a general who participated in the Great War of Tianyuan, but your status was also beyond my imagination. You once told me that you were more upright and more righteous than anyone else. At that time, I only thought that you were joking because I really could not imagine what you would be like when you were upright. That face of yours seemed to be born to laugh carelessly. In fact, this is quite good. It is better to laugh carelessly than to keep a straight face all day long like my father. Whether you're the Sun Lang I know, the mischievous ranger, the idiot who fooled around all day, or the general of the 6 armies of Tianyuan, it doesn't matter. But I still have some regrets. Because sometimes I want to see what you looked like at that time. The heroes in the Register of Heroes of Tianyuan, the legends and stories that have been passed down to the world. The heroes of Tianyuan fought bloody battles for decades and defeated the Sky Demon, winning the hard-won peace for the country and the people, and you were one of them. Therefore, when I read the Register of Heroes and heard the songs of children, I always think that Sun Lang should be in the Register of Heroes, but he wasn't. Then, I want to know your story. I want to see what you looked like when you dominated the battlefield and won every battle, but I can't see it and I can't imagine it. What I see is you who retired after your achievements, who took off your armor and traveled far away, who was a little tired, and who returned to normal. Such a Sun Lang is also very, very good, but I still feel regretful because I can't see your most dazzling moments. I think that you are probably tired. I know that you don't want to go back to the past because you don't want to remember the sorrow and pain in the past. So, I think that the Sun Lang right now is very good. At least, you can laugh without restraint and be happy every day. But I still feel regretful. Not because I can't see the brilliant Sun Lang in the past, but because you were forced to abandon the bright you back then along with the dark things. In fact, it doesn't have to be like that. Because no matter what, those 6 years were a part of your life. You were the one who protected this country. You were the one who protected this world. You were the one who made the contributions. You were the one who obtained the glory. The light and glory that accompanied your soul will not be erased by anyone and will not be faded by any tricks. You are you. This is your light. The figure who fought on the battlefield of the Heaven's Origin sector, the general who is regarded as the flag of the soldiers, is an indispensable part of your life. Now, I'm glad to find that you have finally regained the feelings of the past. Only the hero of the Heaven's Origin sector, Sun Lang, would make such a choice. The story that happened in the Bai Castle is like a legend. Only a hero can save a hero, and only a hero can free a hero. It's a pity that I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I'm really happy. Maybe when we meet again, things will be different. Sun Lang, meeting you that night, calling you to stop, and remembering you are something that I will never regret in my life. The handwriting after that was a bit messy, as if the writer had spent a lot of courage to write the following paragraph. Sun Lang, who is always happy, is naturally very, very good. But the Sun Lang, who shines in the sky like the sun, is also very, very good. If I have to choose, I want to be greedy. Because no matter which one it is, it's still you. It's still my hero. Chapter 718. He had mixed feelings. Under the bright light, Sun Lang quietly read the letter from Mingzhou. The content of the letter was as reserved as ever, just like the shy girl. But there was also passion hidden in the reservedness. She expressed her expectations, wishes, and hopes. A hero. Sun Lang's gaze drifted. The 6 years of fighting on the battlefield were memories he didn't want to recall, because all his heroic past was actually based on an extremely selfish truth. As a visitor from another world, he originally had a peaceful and happy life of his own. He came to this world and fought for this world. It was never his idea to come to this world and fight for it. It was a despicable coercion. As an ordinary earthling, he suddenly came to another world one day. This world was being tortured by evil enemies and needed a hero to save it. Therefore, the visitor from another world naturally became the chosen hero. He led everyone to defeat the enemy and obtain the meaning of life in this strange world. This kind of story was very familiar to him. There were many similar stories, but this was not his story. His story was much crueler than this. He didn't face a cowardly king who begged for a hero to come. Instead, he faced selfish superiors who were desperate and desperate. His story of saving the world had a cruel beginning and an extremely ironic and ridiculous ending. Yes, the hero even defeated the Demon King and defeated all the invaders. But the process was not as beautiful as it was described in fairy tales and epics. This world was not beautiful to begin with. As for Sun Lang, who had experienced all these things, it was only natural that his heart had already fallen silent. The sense of accomplishment from killing generals and seizing the flag, the sense of honor from defeating the enemy, all of these had disappeared with the wind, as if the glory of being a hero that once existed had been swallowed up by endless blood and darkness. He didn't believe in the so-called heroes, the so-called legends, and the so-called glory, because he himself was a part of the biggest lie in the history of this world. He had personally experienced, witnessed, and remembered it. So a hero? He chewed on the word and thought back to the past. Inlua's smile appeared in his mind. This girl's expectations were all written in this letter. Although he didn't say it explicitly, Inluo had indeed expressed such thoughts. He hoped that Sun Lang would be able to find his heroic self and stand under the sun again. She said that no matter what the reasons were, those 6 years were indeed memories that she had created. Those people, those things, those victories, those sacrifices. The bloody battle that lasted for decades, under the threat of extinction. The entire nation fought against foreign enemies. People from all over the world abandoned their cowardice to fight for the same belief. This was an epic story that made one's blood boil. And in this epic, there should be an indelible figure. Just like Bai Yue, no matter what he did in the great desolate mountains, his achievements and contributions over the past few decades would not be erased. Even Sun Lang still missed his heroic past. Since even Bai Yue's past would be remembered, why wouldn't she be willing to remember her own? This was probably Yinluo's unspoken words. But how could it be so easy? Sun Lang slowly smiled and shook his head. Yes, fate makes fools of people, and by a free combination of factors to this day, wanting to transcend, how could it be so easy? But if this is your request, then I'll try again. After all, you worship the heroes of Tianyuan so much. After all, this is what you want. It is said that every girl has a dream, that the person they love is an indomitable hero. Although you don't say it, you must have such thoughts in your heart. Since that's the case, then I'll try again. Sun Lang continued to read with a faint smile. There was still one more page in the letter. But then his smile slowly faded. From the handwriting, Yinluo seemed to be very hesitant. But after hesitating for a long time, she finally wrote it down. She told him about what happened during the day, how Sister Bao's emotions were surging, and how they were worried. Yinluo said that the two sisters were temporarily appeased by her. They were both good girls and would not come to trouble him because of this kind of thing. They would put their hesitation and fear in the bottom of their hearts and wait for him to give them an answer. But they hoped that he could come back as soon as possible after finishing his business in Qinzhou, because it would be better for the knot in their hearts to be untied as soon as possible. The content of the letter stopped here. Looking at Yinluo's resentful writing at the end, Sun Lang fell into a long silence. The Rongwa mansion was related to his previous identity and the reason why he came to this world. It was the beginning of everything, and also the last tie that connected him to the past. He had wanted to cut off this tie cleanly. But after seeing Sister Bao and Sister Lin, this idea faded away because they had never forgotten him. Even when they heard the bad news and thought that he had died in the battle in the Great Desolate Mountain, they did not give up hope. They publicly announced that they would marry into the Jia family and choose to observe mourning for him. If he didn't come back in 10 years, they would wait for 10 years. If he didn't come back in a lifetime, they would wait for a lifetime. They were infatuated and resolute. They did it for only one thought without complaint. This kind of emotion made him feel a loss. Since the end of the battle in the Great Desolate Mountain, life had a clear weight in his eyes. His emotions had become indifferent, his compassion had become scarce, and his sense of morality and right and wrong had become blurred. In his eyes, there was not much difference between a newborn baby and a heinous criminal. If he decided to kill, he could strangle 100 babies to death without batting an eyelid. Because even if they were babies, they were no different from ordinary people. They would all be deprived of life, so there was no need to distinguish between the big and the small. Killing was killing, and a murderer was a murderer. It would not be different because of the identity of the person you killed. They were all lives, and killing was killing. There was no difference. But that matter was not a problem that could be solved by waving a sword and killing people. They had always remembered him, waited for him, trusted him, and sincerely treated him well in this world. Trust, waiting, and love, these were the things that he craved, but they were extremely scarce. In the face of Sister Bao and Sister Lin, he could not say no. He could not do anything excessive. He would protect them as before and not let them suffer any harm. So, he had not been honest with them about his identity. He would rather be the second master of Rongwa Mansion for a while than tell them abruptly, "Hey, your cousin died 6 years ago, and I'm a time traveler who was summoned here. Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" They must be scared. So, he could not be too hasty. But now it seemed that Sister Bao and Sister Bao had noticed some clues. After all, they were smart women. There were many clues in Mingzhou that they must have noticed. Sun Lang seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed slightly, and he directly opened the rest of the packages. Then, he found Sister Bao's and Sister Lin's letters and opened them. The contents of the letters were exactly as he had imagined. Greetings, thoughts, and comforts. They asked about his health, his diet, and the weather. They missed that he was far away in Qinzhou and hoped that he would come back soon. They comforted him that he did not need to be sad about by Yu Wei's death. They told him that they both understood and supported Sun Lang's actions. Moreover, the other Heaven's Origin soldiers would also thank him for everything he had done for Bai Yu Wei. In this regard, their views were different from Yin Luo and the others. Yin Luo and Sister Bao knew the sloppy Sun Lang who had left the battlefield and seen through the world. They had never seen Sun Lang's heroic side. So, when they heard about Sun Lang's choice in Bai Castle, they were excited, delighted, and fascinated. But Sister Bao and Sister Lin were different. They did not know anything. They did not know Sun Lang's true identity. They did not know what Sun Lang had experienced in the Great Desolate Mountain, and they did not know why Sun Lang had become what he was now. They only knew that their husband was a peerless general who was the best in the 6 armies. He was the brightest star in the Book of Heroes of Heaven's Origin. In their hearts, Sun Lang would always be the same as he was in the past. He was a peerless, unparalleled hero who was hard to find in the world. Therefore, they took everything that Sun Lang had done in Bai Castle as a matter of course. They did not feel the slightest bit surprised or surprised. They only offered their wives comfort and affirmation. Yes, they did not know anything. Because of their identities, Sun Lang would not open his heart to them like he did to Zhao Yunlong. There were things that Chao Patao knew that they could not know. For example, his true identity was because Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai were from the Rongwu family. Sun Lang let out a soft sigh. Regardless of whether it was Sister Bao's letter or Sister Lin's letter, the contents of the letter were just as he had expected. There were only greetings, thoughts, and words of comfort. There was nothing else. What Yin Luo mentioned in his heart, he didn't even mention anything about their confusion and panic, as though nothing like that had happened. Just like what Yin Luo had said, they were all good ladies. If they had something on their minds, they would only keep it in their hearts and wait for him to talk about it, and not take the initiative to bring it up and trouble him. Sun Lang let out another soft sigh. As the saying goes, a beauty's grace is great. It felt good, but not good. His fingers subconsciously knocked on the table. For a moment, his mind was racing. He was an imposter. He knew nothing about the Rongwu family, which was thousands of miles away. He had always been resistant to that place. During the war, the most troublesome thing was that sooner or later, when the war was over and the Sky Demon was driven away, he would have to go back. He would have to go back to that strange home and face a bunch of anxious old ladies with a confused face. But, perhaps, he would have to face it sooner or later. He hesitated and gradually made a decision. But in the next moment, his expression changed. Someone was rapidly approaching from outside. Judging from the footsteps, it was Wei Zhongxian. His footsteps were somewhat hurried, as if something urgent had happened. Then, Wei Zhongxian knocked on the door. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.